Hello everyone. I am your dark narrator here to guide you today. I know many of you use this video to help you drift off to sleep, but before you do, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also drop a comment letting us know where you're from and what time you're watching. Now settle in, get comfortable, and relax. Hello everyone. I am the Midnight Narrator and I am here today to help you. I know you are using this video to fall asleep, so before we begin, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments where you're from and what time you're watching this. Now get comfortable and relax. Comfortable. My dad was a detective in the Los Angeles area for over 40 years. He worked right up until the day he died, which was last month. He specialized in interrogating perpetrators, especially the psycho or difficult ones. I was going through his things and found a box of tapes. They were all labeled with case numbers and dates. I think they must be the official recordings of the interviews he conducted. I have been listening to some of them, and they are more disturbing than you can even imagine. I am going to share one of the transcripts with you. Please only read if you are able to handle some really fucking creepy shit. I am going to call my dad Danny, since that's what he went by. I'll try to also write notes about the different sounds that happen. My notes will be in parentheses. I miss you, Dad. Danny. Good morning, Ms. Davis. Ms. Davis? Is it morning? Danny. Yes, ma'am, it's exactly 7:45 a.m. Ms. Davis. Oh yes, of course, Danny. Would you like to tell me about what happened? Ms. Davis. I can try. Are you recording? Danny. Yes, ma'am, we have to record these interviews. Ms. Davis. Oh my. Well, I don't mind being recorded. I'm used to it, you know. My sister and I, we were child stars, like real ones. We got recognized on the street all the time. We had tons of fans and got letters and presents. I still have a big white bear one of my fans sent me. I started acting in films when I was 6. My sister was only 4. I guess you could say our parents were show parents. Looking back, I think they were trying to live through us. They never got to be stars, so we were like their little substitutes. I don't have too many memories of that time in my life. I was very young after all. But I do remember spending hours in hair and makeup. I was a pretty well-behaved as a child, I think. I tolerated the fake eyelashes and outfits. My little sister Missy was less well-behaved. She was always crying and squirming around. But once that camera turned on, we were both perfect. I don't act anymore. As you probably know, most child stars don't have film careers as adults. Once we stopped being cute, the industry didn't want us anymore. For me, it was the age of 18. No one was interested in my talent after that. I can't lie, I was pretty sad. I loved being pampered and treated like a supermodel. Missy, on the other hand, hated the limelight. She was so happy when we stopped acting. Anyway, I lived with Missy in our childhood home. Our parents died when we were 22. They left us quite a bit of money, so I don't work. Missy is in school for social work. She's always been such a sweet soul. She is going to help so many people with her degree. I'm getting off topic. I now have a little girl of my own. She's 4.5. Her name is Lissy. She is so stunningly beautiful, I really want to get her involved in acting, but Missy doesn't think it's a good idea. She reminds me how difficult our childhoods were. But I think it was good for us. It taught us how to be outgoing and patient. Lissy is a bit of a handful. She cries a lot and whines. Missy says it's normal, but I think she needs a little structure in her life. And the life of a child star is definitely structured. You wake up, get ready for the shoot, spend all day on camera, and then finally go back to sleep. Missy and I barely had time for ourselves and hardly ever went to school. Missy wanted to go, but our parents were very strict about our filming schedules. Wow, I am such a space case, I totally forgot your question. Danny. Don't worry, ma'am. I asked what happened last night. Ms. Davis. Oh yeah, sorry, I've always been so forgetful. Anyway, last night Lissy and were watching some of Missy and my old movies. I told Lissy all about how her aunt and I were child stars, and she seemed really interested in seeing the videos. I mean, what little girl doesn't want to be famous? I decided to show her our most popular film, which was the first one we ever made. I think it was so popular because we were brand new on the scene and people were amazed by our talents. Danny. At this point, Dad's voice breaks just a tiny bit. Are you saying you showed your daughter your movies? Ms. Davis. Of course, doesn't every star show their children their movies? Anyway, Lissy and I were watching, and she giggled the whole time. The film is pretty simple, so she could understand what was happening. It was an easy shoot. It was just us girls in the bathtub. We played with the bubbles and laughed a lot. Then we got out of the tub and our dad dried us off. It's called Sissy and Missy Have Bath Time. Once the video ended, Lissy wanted more, so I played her a few more. She liked the ones with us alone the best, although I showed her some of the films we made with co-stars. She didn't like those as much. It was probably because Missy had a few crying scenes in those. We watched Sissy and Missy get in trouble, and Sissy and Missy play dress up, and a few others. So then Missy walks in on us watching the movie with Mr. Friendly Danny. Mr. Friendly, Ms. Davis. Oh yeah, Mr. Friendly was one of Dad's friends. He was very nice to us. After the shoot, we got lots of candy and stayed up all night. I guess Missy didn't like him very much because she ran into the room while we were watching and started screaming. She said, "What the fuck are you doing?" The woman was using a mocking tone for her sister's voice. I told her the truth. I swear I did. I said, "Lissy wanted to see our movies." Missy looked furious. She kept yelling, "I thought you said you destroyed these tapes." Danny, we thought those films were destroyed as well after the trial. Ms. Davis, they got rid of the tapes they found, but Mom and Dad had a whole stack of duplicates under the floorboards. I kept them because I hated to think of my childhood acting career being destroyed. Danny, okay ma'am, so what happened next? Ms. Davis, well, Missy kept screaming at me. She yelled and threw things. She threatened to take away Lissy. She said I wasn't a good mom. She said I was just like our mother, which is ridiculous. I couldn't believe she said those things. I'm a great mom. I just want my daughter to feel like a star, too. So I turned her upside down. Danny. My dad pauses for a long time. What does it mean to turn someone upside down? Ms. Davis. Oh, silly me. I forget that not everyone knows that term. It's an acting term. When an actress isn't performing right, our parents would turn her upside down. We had lots of sisters who became upside down. They still live with us. It's just now they live in the garden. Danny, how do you turn someone upside down? I don't know how my dad remained calm. Ms. Davis, you stabbed them. She starts laughing. Danny, are you saying you killed your sister? My dad's voice is hard to hear over her laughter. Ms. Davis, she was going to take away my baby girl. I made her upside down. She can sleep in the garden with the rest of them. She never understood how important it was to be a star. She deserved it. I'm a good mom. Danny. Dad stays silent for a solid minute. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me? Ms. Davis. You know, you look a lot like Mr. Friendly. You're handsome. I bet you'd make a good actor. Have you thought about acting? Danny. No, ma'am. Ms. Davis. Well, you should think about it. My daughter is getting into acting, you know. You two could make a great movie. That's where it ends. You see what I'm saying about it being disturbing? Thank God my dad was a good man. Everyone seems really interested in Dad's tapes. I guess that's good. His work gets to sort of live on. But it's also a little creepy that you guys are so interested in these psychos. I mean, you seem almost as interested as Dad was. He talked about the perps all the time. I think it followed him home from work a lot. Anyway, here is another tape. Also just a reminder that my dad's name is Danny, so that's what I call him below. Danny Dirk? Dirk, yeah? Danny, are you feeling all right? Dirk, yeah man, just tired. I can't sleep in this place. Danny, yeah, I understand that. Do you feel able to talk to me? Dirk, sure, but you won't believe me. Danny, try me. Dirk takes a deep breath. It's just I haven't been able to talk to anyone except Meg about this. Especially not my family, obviously. Danny, how about we start there? What is your family life like? Dirk, I don't know. My life has always been kind of below average. My parents were both college grads, but I didn't make it past freshman year. Danny, what else? Dirk, I guess I was kind of a jerk in high school. I dated around a lot and messed with some of the younger kids. I got myself together a bit once my parents kicked me out of the house. I'm not mad at them for it. I needed that push. I started working as a bartender. And that's where I've been for forever, it seems. Same town, same bar, same life. I guess it has its benefits, though. Danny, yeah? Like what? Dirk, the nice thing about Mickey's, sorry, that's the bar I work at. The good thing is that it's between two major roads, so we get a lot of travelers in. A lot of out-of-towners staying overnight. That means a lot of new faces and always new women to meet. I wouldn't call myself handsome. Hell, you can see that, but I can definitely charm a girl into bed, he laughs. Well, not all girls, not Meg. Danny, who is Meg? Dirk, Meg is this leggy brunette who just moved out of her parents' place. She was just barely 18 when she dropped into the bar. She is small-town pretty, you know the kind. Boring face, not really any ass, but her rack was nice and she knew how to wear a dress. I'm sorry, man, I'm kind of vulgar. Danny, I've heard worse. Please, go on. Dirk, well, I chatted Meg up every night she came in, but she never went home with me. We'd be talking until closing time, me urging her back to my place. But she always flirtatiously declined, and that was that. I may not be the best guy, but I am definitely not some rapist. Anyway, a week after Meg started coming in, I met this chick. Fuck, what was her name? Danny. Anne Sorelli. Dirk. Yeah, that sounds right. Anne. She was a typical traveler on her way to a business trip. She stopped into the bar for a drink, and I certainly admired the way she filled out her little pantsuit. We flirted all night, and then I took her home. I promise you, everything was totally normal for the most part. We talked more at my apartment, we made out a little, and then it was time for the real event. This is going to get kind of graphic, but hey, I warned you. So yeah, I was just inside her when all of a sudden she starts screaming, "Don't put your dick in crazy." His voice raises and he's actually screaming this. I immediately pull out. I was totally caught off guard. I said, "What the fuck?" She was just lying on the bed, confused. She asked what was wrong. I told her what she said and she laughed and said I must have been hearing things. I guess I shrugged it off because we started making out again. I got hard and was back inside of her. She starts screaming again. "Don't put your dick in crazy. Don't put your dick in crazy." I pull out again and she is looking at me still confused. I think fuck it. Maybe she has a weird kink or something. So I decide to just go with it. We start fucking again and she just keeps screaming, "Don't put your dick in crazy." I try to ignore it, you know? But then it gets really weird. Her face starts to contort, I guess. Like she tasted something sour, but it was affecting her entire face. Then her neck starts to turn, and I swear to God, she turned her head almost all the way around. This is going to sound strange, but I couldn't stop. It was the best damn orgasm I ever had. She was looking weirder and weirder, screaming the whole time, "Don't put your dick in crazy." But I was coming fucking hard. I finished finally and must have passed out because I woke up and she was gone. Danny, you didn't see her leave? Dirk, nope. Pauses for a few seconds. I asked Meg about it and she laughed at me. She said either Anne was a nut job or I was going insane. I kind of joked about inviting her up to my apartment and seeing which one was true. But she said no, like she always did. But that wasn't the end. The same thing happened to next 3 girls. Danny, next 4? Dirk, yeah, I wasn't going to let some crazy bitch ruin my sex life. Plus, I don't know why, but I felt extra horny all the time. Every woman I saw was incredibly hot to me, even if she wasn't my type. Like the next girl I took home. Her name was, Danny. Miranda? Dirk. No, that was the one after that. I think this next girl was named Susie. Anyway, she was not a chick you'd think of as hot. She was thin but had this weird bulging stomach. Like she was pregnant almost. Her hair was kind of ratty and she was just dirty looking. But I was horny and she was ready to go. So I took her home. She didn't even want to make out. I think she was just grateful for any male attention. So we get to fucking right away, and just like Anne, she starts screaming, "Don't put your dick in crazy." I pull out, fucking shocked. She looks at me weird, just like Anne. She said she didn't say anything. She said I must be imagining it. And fuck, I was so horny. I went back inside her. She was turned away from me towards the wall. I tried to push her head into the pillow so I wouldn't hear her yelling, "Don't put your dick in crazy." But she was loud as fuck. And her body, the huge bulge on her stomach, started moving. It moved to her back and then up to her neck. It was pulsing like something was pushing inside of it. Then her head snaps back and her spine twists up towards me. All the while she's screaming, "Don't put your dick in crazy." I guess I passed out again after I finished. She was gone when I woke up. Danny, does that phrase have any meaning to you? Dirk, I know my high school friends, and I used to use that phrase all the time jokingly, especially about ex-girlfriends. It's like so many women are just nut jobs. And if you fuck those chicks, you're stuck with the crazy forever. But none of these girls seemed like that. They were just normal bar chicks. But every girl I had sex with did the same thing. The yelling, the weird body shit, and then me waking up and they were gone. Anne, Susie, Miranda, Cal, Carrie, and whatever that last chick's name was. She was a hooker, so I doubt Candy was her real name. Danny, Candy was the sex worker? Dirk, Yeah, she was my last hope, sort of. Meg actually suggested it. I told her the insane stories of these girls, and she said I was definitely going crazy. But there's only way to know for sure. She said that I should hire a prostitute and pay her to say nothing during sex. And if she yells, then I know I'm insane. Danny. So it was Meg who introduced you to Candy? Dirk. Yeah, but Candy was the worst one of all. The second I entered her, her skin started dripping off. It felt like paint sloping off her body. It turned a dark red, then smeared onto my bed. It got all over my body. But I couldn't stop. I just watched as she decomposed right in front of me. And of course, the whole time she was screaming, "Don't put your dick in crazy. Don't put your dick in crazy." Eventually, I was fucking a bear skeleton. I swear to God, she had melted right in front of me. I just wanted it to be over. He starts to cry softly. Danny, when did the police show up? Dirk. Right before I, finished. It was mortifying. The police stared at me with their guns out while I was coming into this disgusting skeleton. I finished, but this time I didn't pass out. Danny, do you remember what happened after that? Dirk. Kind of. I remember one of the cops handcuffing me. They wouldn't even let me grab my clothes. I remember being put in this room, but I don't know why I'm being held here. I didn't do anything wrong. It was these crazy women, I swear. They are the ones who were screaming, "Don't put your dick in crazy." I didn't tell them to. If they say I did something to them, they're lying. Ask Meg, please ask her. Danny. Dirk, just ask Meg. I did some digging after I listened to this story. Turns out Dirk was a real scumbag. He killed 5 women in the span of 3 months. They were all travelers, so no one even knew where to look for them or that they were missing. He was only caught because he dug up an ex-girlfriend who had killed herself in high school. He was trying to have sex with her dead body. Well, whatever is left after 5+ years. Her name was Megan Ruley. My dad put up with some sick people. I don't know how he got through it alive. Well, I guess he didn't. I'm back with another of my dad's tapes. But I thought first maybe I'd introduce myself a little. My name is Sam. I'm an only child. My dad raised me by himself with only the occasional help of babysitters. He worked a lot but still found time for me. That's why it hurt so bad when he died. I miss him. And as always, a reminder that my dad's name is Danny. Danny, good morning. There is grumbling, but no words that I could make out. The grumbling is disturbingly low. Danny, can you tell me your name? Sid. Ain't that on your papers? She has the voice of a teenage girl. Danny, Sydney? Sid, what? You got a hearing problem? Dame, please excuse Sid, she has a mouth on her. She has the voice of an older woman like a grandma. Danny, oh, I'm sorry, I don't seem to have your name. Dame, it's Dame, I'm Sydney's guardian. Danny, so you're looking after her? Dame, yes, she needs quite a bit of looking after. Danny, can Sid tell me what happened? Sid, fuck off, Dame. Sid, I am so sorry. She is here today to say she is sorry. Sid, I didn't do it. I don't have anything to apologize for. Dame, Sid, we've talked about this. More grumbling. Danny, I am not blaming anyone. I am just here to listen. Sid, that's what they all say. They all say they're here to listen, but no one ever believes me. Danny, how about you give me a chance? Sid, there is a long pause. Fine, but you have to talk to me, not Dame, okay? Danny, okay, go on. Sid, while she is talking, there is the sound of nails scratching wood. I think she must have been dragging her fingernails along a table. So I have some weird friends, I'll admit that. But that's only because I don't really get along with people. Ever since I was a kid, I was always the outcast. Being a foster kid doesn't make you many friends. So you've met my friends, Romy and Dave. They are odd, I guess. Don't tell them I said that. But they genuinely care about me. They treat me like a friend instead of a pest. Romy, she is like the person I wish I could be. She's pretty and smart. She has a family who loves her. God, I get jealous of her sometimes. And Dave is just your typical spoiled kid. It's always the 3 of us. Danny, and which of you started the fire last night? Romy, it was Sid, I swear it was. It wasn't Dave. I was back home, you can ask my mom. She sounds like a teenage girl, similar to Sid. Danny, I was talking to Sid. Romy, right? Romy, but Sid is a liar, she is always lying. Sid, I am not lying, Dame. Please, girls, you're embarrassing me. Romy, you're not my mother. Danny, I need everyone to take a deep breath. The room is silent. Okay, Romy, I already interviewed you. It's Sid's turn now. Sid, yeah, it's my turn. Danny, so please go on. Sid, okay. Look, I am not going to lie to you and tell you I'm a good person. I've done stupid stuff, I've shoplifted, whatever. But I didn't start the fire. I don't even know how to start a fire, and where would I even get gasoline? Danny. Sid, how did you know there was gasoline present? Romy. She did it. It was her, not Dave. Sid, it wasn't me. Dame, girls, please, Danny, I think we need a second. Maybe I could talk with Dave. There's a long pause. Sid, he doesn't want to talk to you. Danny. I know, but I think he's the one who could clear this up. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but 7 people died in that fire. Romy. He didn't mean to kill anyone, he just likes to set fires. Dame. I thought it was harmless, so I let him do it. A sob can be heard. I should have stopped him. Danny. Let's all calm down, I want to hear from Dave. Sid, number Danny. Dave, can you hear me? Grumbles. Danny, I know you're here, Dave, I can see you. Dame, don't upset him. Danny, we don't have to talk about last night. How about trucks? I know you like trucks. Dave, I like trucks. He has the voice of a young boy, maybe 8 or 9. Danny, me too. My son used to play with a big truck when he was your age. Pause. Do you like monster trucks? Dave, yes. Danny, do you like fire trucks? Dave, no, I hate fire trucks. Danny, why? Dave, because they put out fires. I like fires. Danny, why do you like fires? Dave, fires killed my parents. Loud grumbles, almost screaming. Danny, I'm sorry, I just... Sid, his parents were sick. They hurt him. They deserved what we did to them. Danny, are you saying you set that fire 3 years ago? Sid, it doesn't matter. You're going to lock us up now. Her voice starts to sound less like a teenage girl and more like a young boy. I've seen it on TV. You'll lock us up and we'll be in jail. Danny, Dave? Dave, you'll lock us up. You'll lock us up. You'll lock us up. Danny, Dave, are the others gone? Is it just you now? Dave, lock us. Soft grumbling, but turns into a violent near scream. Dame, is this over yet? I want to take us home. I looked into this, and David Evers was a little boy whose parents were killed in a fire when he was 6, and then he set another fire which killed an entire family. They say he had dissociative identity disorder. All of the psychologists were interested in him, especially because all of his personalities were women. I guess after this interview with my dad, he was never Dave again. He just sounds like a crazy kid to me. I don't know anything about mental illness, but this kid is messed up. The sounds he made, those guttural grumblings. I would be fine never hearing those again. I wonder if it was those grumblings that kept my dad up at night. Some people have asked whether my dad's tapes are video or just audio. Unfortunately, it's only audio, all cassette tapes. I guess the precinct he worked out of didn't have updated technology. Or maybe Dad just liked the grainy sound of cassettes. Either way, it takes forever to play them and then write up the transcripts. It's a lot of pausing and rewinding, but I've committed to this, so this is how I spend my time. I think Dad would be proud of me. I just wish he could have seen this while he alive. Maybe he would have told me he was proud. Out loud, I mean. A few of you have asked how my dad died. I don't know why that matters. Danny, how are you feeling, Brianna? There's no sound for a solid minute. Can you talk to me? Another long pause. Brianna, you need to talk to me so we can get this all straightened out. Brianna, you know what you have to do. Danny, you know I can't do that. This pause is the longest. I timed it. It's nearly 3 minutes. What if I drank some water, Brianna? Doesn't matter, you have to eat. Danny, fine. There is some shuffling, a door opening and closing, then a few minutes of silence. Then the door opens again and I can hear shuffling and then quiet. Is a granola bar good enough? Brianna, yes, you have to eat the whole thing. Danny, there are quiet sounds of a wrapper and chewing. I have to say, I've never been asked to eat in front of someone before. Brianna, show me your mouth, I want to see if you chewed it. More chewing and then the sound of a wrapper being balled up and thrown away. She breathes a loud sigh of relief. I'm so glad. I haven't seen any real people in weeks. Danny, weeks? Where have you been, Brianna? Nowhere special. I try to stay out of the crowds. They're everywhere. Walking around, driving cars. I hide for most of the day. Danny, where do you live? Brianna, lots of places. I like alleys because they avoid them. I like dark spaces. But sometimes they find me. Danny, who? Brianna, them. Danny, can you tell me more about them? Brianna, I don't know. Danny, remember I ate the granola bar. Brianna, I remember they don't eat, they can't eat them, the copies. Danny, copies of what? Brianna, everyone. She takes in a deep breath. I think you might see them too. Danny, I do. He spoke with completely sincerity. When did it start for you? Brianna, my 15th birthday. I was blind to it before then, but I can remember that day so clearly. All my friends came over, but they weren't my friends. They were copies. They looked exactly the same, sounded the same, but I knew. I knew they weren't real. My parents told me I was delusional. I didn't realize it then, but they were copies too. They took me to a doctor who told me I was crazy. But that's just what they want me to believe. They want me to keep quiet about it. Someone or something is replacing everyone on Earth with identical copies. But they made one fatal error. The copies they can't eat. They just put the food up to their faces but can't chew. They can't put anything inside their mouths. They just do the motions of eating without actually digesting. It's the only way you can tell who is real. I haven't been home in, well, it's got to be more than 10 years. I'm not going to live with those things. I'll take my chances on the street. Danny. There is a warm silence, as if the two of them are calmly regarding each other. The streets aren't safe, though. Brianna. Nowhere is safe. There are copies everywhere. They try to act normal, but I can see right through them. Like last year with that doctor. Danny. Doctor. Stevens? Brianna. Ha. What a joke. They thought if they locked me up and made me talk with that thing, that I would stop fighting them. But it was just another copy. Danny. How did you know? Brianna. It wouldn't eat. I dared it to, told it that if it really was real it would be no problem. But it refused. Made some excuse about not playing into my delusion. Her voice grows a distinct sharp tone. The copies, they think they're smarter than me. But I know how to deal with them. Danny. How? Brianna. The same way you deal with any intruder. You end them. The sound of a fist slamming against a table. The copies, they don't feel pain. They don't feel anything. They can't. Oh, they scream and carry on like they can, but it's all a lie. She starts laughing, but they bleed a lot. Danny. Pause. Why didn't you end me, Brianna? Brianna. Her voice is normal again. Because that would be murder. You ate. You proved to me that you're real. I would never hurt a real person. Danny, how many copies have you ended? Brianna, 31. I don't go out searching for them, it's only when they come to me. I don't enjoy watching them bleed. Although I have to admit there is a sick pleasure in knowing that you are removing one more of those things from this planet. I don't know where they came from, but I know for sure that they are a plague. Danny, aren't you afraid they might make a copy of you? Brianna scoffs, oh no, they can't make a copy of me. Danny, why? Brianna, because they don't make copies of dead people. I have to admit, the clarity in which he said that last sentence shook me up. This girl was insane. Turns out she had two co-current mental illnesses, Capgras delusion and Cotard delusion. Capgras is really creepy. It makes the person think other people have been replaced or disguised. Usually it's just the people close to them, but Brianna believed it was everyone. They eventually ended up pinning 9 murders on her, but she says herself that she committed 31. I have a theory about the whole eating thing. I dug into my dad's records, and apparently she was hospitalized in middle school for extreme anorexia. I bet she turned that into some sort of fixture of her delusion. But the Cotard part, that's really scary. It makes people actually believe that they are dead. They are just a dead person walking around. I'm sure her emaciated frame didn't help her seem alive either. This girl is creepy, but that's not what has been bothering me. I can't get over how my dad responded to her. When he said he saw the copies too. I know intelligently that it's just a tactic to get her to talk more, but the way he said it, it was like it was true. I don't know, I just don't like the way it makes me feel. Obviously it's Timmy again. Before I go into everything, I hope everyone had a nice Christmas. Mine was pretty lonely since Dad is gone, but during the holidays I ran into an odd event. Since I have vacation from work, I spent a lot of time typing up transcripts. My fingers are all but falling off. I haven't really been doing them in any particular order, just as I grabbed them from the box. Well, the most recent one I grabbed was a little different than the rest. It had a case number on the tape, but no name. I was planning to type it up, but I needed a name to put to the other person in the interview. So I figured I could just call my dad's precinct and get the name. In case you were wondering, I was very wrong, so I'm going to first include the transcript of the tape and then tell you what happened when I tried to get the name. Hopefully someone out there will help me. I'm going to call the other person Mr. Friendly, since I seem to remember that name from somewhere. As a reminder, my dad's name is Danny. A little bit about this tape. It clearly starts in the middle of a conversation. To be honest, a lot of these tapes seem to start or end at odd times, but this one is the clearest. Danny, I wish it were that easy. Mr. Friendly, it can be if you agree to it. I know I'm calling him Mr., but to be honest, I can't tell what gender he is. His voice sort of fluctuates from deep to high. Danny, I'm not in the mood to play games. You know why I'm here. Mr. Friendly, and you know why I'm here, Danny. You're here because you killed 3 men. Pause. Do you agree? Mr. Friendly, I don't agree to anything. Danny, okay, no agreeing. But can you just tell me, what did you have against those men? Mr. Friendly, they were smug. They thought they were better than me. I don't like that. Danny, but you've been through this before, and you've never killed until now. What was different? Mr. Friendly, friend, you're too smart to do what you do. You could join us. I would be gentle. Danny, I know better than to say yes to you. Mr. Friendly, oh friend, you might not be one of us, but you do know our ways so well. Danny, I've been doing this a long time. Mr. Friendly, too long. Danny, maybe. Mr. Friendly, tell you what, if you ask the right questions, I'll answer them. Agreed? Danny, I don't agree to anything. Mr. Friendly, laughing. Good friend, smart friend. Danny, the first man, Henry, he was a banker. Mr. Friendly, his money tasted delicious. Danny, you mean his hands? You ate them. Mr. Friendly, the hands say a lot about a person. Some people have hands that taste like earth. Others have hands that taste like water. The banker tasted like money. So greedy, friend. Danny, what about the next one? Mr. Friendly, I left his hands and ate his eyes. He was a photographer. I thought his eyes would taste of faraway places, but they were plastic. I spit them out. Danny, we couldn't find them at the scene. Mr. Friendly, we don't leave traces. Danny, and the third? We couldn't find anything missing from him. Mr. Friendly, you didn't look deep enough. Danny, but there were no marks on the body. Mr. Friendly, we don't leave marks. Pause. Do you like my new voice? The vocal cords were so thick, I chewed on them for hours. They tasted like smoke. Danny, you couldn't have chewed them for hours. We were there within minutes. Mr. Friendly, your time does not affect me. Danny, well, you'll need to get used to it. We have you now. We're not letting you go. Mr. Friendly, stupid friend. Danny, we have more of you. We have your victims too, the ones you let live. Mr. Friendly, we don't let anyone live. They might be breathing, but they might as well be dead. Danny, we have different definitions of dead. Mr. Friendly, that's because I cause it and you don't, but that will change. Danny, how will it change? Mr. Friendly, laughing, silly friend, I like you. Danny, why? Mr. Friendly, because you're not afraid of me. Danny, I deal with people like you every day. You don't scare me. Mr. Friendly, I scare your son though, friend. Danny, I don't have a son. Mr. Friendly, you will. He is listening right now. He misses you, friend. Danny, I told you I'm not playing games. Mr. Friendly, he doesn't know our rules. Danny, I will never say yes. I'm done with this. Mr. Friendly, you can't be. Not as long as I stay in this body, right, friend? Danny, pause. I won't say yes. Mr. Friendly, but you feel it, you think it, your humanity betrays you. Laughing, stupid friend, fearful friend. So there's the tape. You can probably see why I wanted to know the name of the other person speaking. Usually after I type up a case, I do research on it. But I couldn't find anything about someone who killed 3 men and ate some of their body parts, particularly the hands, eyes, and vocal cords. After not finding anything, I called my dad's old precinct. I asked about the case number listed on the tape. The officer who answered the phone said they didn't have a case with that number, and even if they did, they couldn't tell civilians details of cases. I told him not to worry because I was Danny's kid and I was just continuing his work. I obviously gave my dad's last name too. The officer said he had never heard of my dad. I asked to speak to the sergeant because clearly the officer didn't know what he was talking about. The sergeant told me 3 things, all of which were incredibly disturbing. 1, he confirmed that the case number I had could not be correct because criminal case numbers are not written in Latin. 2, he said that these tapes could not be police interrogations because all interrogations are video recorded. There was no way that there would only be an audio recording of a police interview. 3, he claimed that a man by my father's name has never worked in his precinct, ever. Obviously, this is all disturbing news. Could this be true? Maybe I got the precinct wrong. I don't know what to say anymore. I debated never writing again. So I guess I'll just answer some of your questions. No, I am not crazy. I am incredibly offended that people think I am. Just because some weird stuff is happening doesn't mean I am insane. I don't know why you guys think that having a bunch of nicknames is weird. Doesn't everyone? My dad gave me like 10 different names to go by. I guess in my last post I used Timmy instead of Sam. That doesn't mean I think I am different people or have different personalities. I just go by a lot of names. My dad always said that if you go by a lot of names, you get to decide who you are that day. And then for my dad, well, I don't have answers for that. He died in an explosion. A local grocery store had a fuse loose or something, and it created a giant fireball that took out the whole store and the parking lot next to it. 53 people died, and almost 100 were injured. My dad was right in the middle of the bang. There was nothing left of him by the time they cleared the area. It's a painful thing to bring up, but everyone seems to be speculating. There was a mass funeral for everyone who died in the explosion. The mayor was there, a lot of people crying. There was nothing of my dad to bury too, I just got him a headstone. It was one of the worst days of my life. Actually, that day is pretty comparable to when I found out my dad was not a cop. I've called every precinct near LA. No one knows him or has any record of him. I have to accept that my dad, one of only 2 people in this world that I love, lied to me. But why? He clearly interacted with criminals, the tapes prove that. My current theory is that he was part of some group like the FBI. I don't know, I'm totally clueless. But I did transcribe another tape. For some reason, I feel like if I listen to the tapes, if I write them all down, maybe I'll be able to understand what is going on. This particular tape is disturbing, obviously, but I can't get any information about my dad from it. Maybe one of you can find something. I probably don't need to remind you, but my dad's name was Danny, I think. Hell, maybe he lied to me about that too. Danny, how many kids were in your class? Daisy, each year it varied, but this past year I had 30. It was one of my larger classes. Danny, and you taught first grade? Daisy, no, kindergarten. It's the best age if you ask me. Danny, why? Daisy, they are still small enough to marvel at the world, but they have the language to describe it. Plus, learning new things comes so easily to them at that age. They are little sponges. Danny, was there anything different about this past year's class? Daisy, not at first. It was pretty evenly split between boys and girls. There were a few troublemakers, but nothing I couldn't handle. I found 2 of the boys practicing kissing each other in the coat closet, laughing. It was innocent. I didn't tell their parents or anything. Kids that age experiment with everything. Danny, but there was one special child, wasn't there? Daisy, no. Danny, pause. Daisy, I am here to help, I believe you. Daisy, I barely believe me. Danny, I know, I can see it in your face. Daisy, I'm only 29, I had my whole life ahead of me. Soft crying. I really do love children, I have my whole life. I never had any brothers or sisters, so I think I always longed for that kind of connection. That's what brought me to teaching. I love shaping the minds of young ones. And the way they look at you, like you're the only one in the world. Kids know how to love unconditionally. Danny, did you know how to love Daisy? Daisy, yes. I loved every single child who I had in my classroom. Danny, except Daisy, except Derek. Danny, tell me about Derek. Daisy, he was a normal kid for most of the semester. He was a little smaller than the other children, but no one ever teased him for it. He had brown hair, just a few freckles. He was the definition of average. The only thing that stuck out at the beginning was how he never acted out. When kids start kindergarten, the first few days and weeks are tough. For most of them, it's their first time being away from home. And even though we do half days most of the week, it still feels like a long time. So I would say every kid cries at least once or throws a tantrum. It's normal. My first year teaching, I had a girl nearly bite my ear off. But Derek, he didn't cry at all. He didn't seem to mind when his dad dropped him off. He was smiley and excited, but did whatever I asked him to. When I told the class to stay quiet, he was quiet. When I had them do an activity, he followed the rules perfectly. Children don't know how to follow rules at first, because at home most families don't enforce a lot of boundaries. Part of my job is teaching the children how to raise their hands and ask to go potty, but Derek seemed to know all of that already. I shrugged it off. I figured he just had stricter parents. Plus, I wasn't going to complain about a well-behaved kid. Hard intake of breath. But then things started to change. The other kids had settled down and were getting used to their routine. Derek started to do odd things. It started when he would draw on himself. This is pretty normal in general, but he was drawing specific pictures of stab wounds. He would draw a thick black line with blood pouring out of it. I asked him why he was drawing it, and he told me he didn't know. Then he started to draw on the other kids. It was always the same thick black lines and blood. Needless to say, the parents started calling me with concerns. I tried to schedule a meeting with Derek's parents, but they were never there to take my calls. Finally, I had to ban Derek from the markers. He didn't seem to care. He didn't put up a fight or cry. He just nodded and accepted it. That's when things got more intense. He started jumping off the playground. A lot of kids do this, but Derek was intentionally trying to hurt himself. He would have scrapes all over his body. Eventually, we had to keep him inside during recess, but that didn't help. He started to jam things into his scrapes and cuts. It could be anything. Legos, construction paper, pipe cleaners. He just jammed it into his wounds and would keep pushing until he had injured himself even more. I told the principal, and she tried to call his parents, but again they never answered. Last week we had decided to call social services. It was beyond our control, but we didn't do it in time. Crying. Danny, it's okay. Keep going. Daisy, it was during lunch. The kids were all in the cafeteria. Kindergarten eats early, so it was just me and my kids. I was grabbing something to eat. It's impossible for me to keep an eye on them the entire time. But Derek, he was standing on the table. I saw him and called to him to get down, and that's when he looked me in the eye. His gaze it wasn't a child who looked at me. It was sinister, and he's smiling. In his hand was the straw from his chocolate milk box. She starts to fall apart, crying heavily. Danny, it's very important that you tell me what happened. Daisy, but Danny, please, no names or titles, we're recording. Daisy, oh yes, okay. Deep breath. He was still smiling at me when he raised his arm in the air and started stabbing the space in front of him with the straw. There was nothing there, but he kept stabbing. I dropped what I was holding and rushed towards him, but I slipped. Oh God, I slipped on blood. I realized that the other kids, they were doing the same thing. They were stabbing, but not the air. They were stabbing each other with their plastic silverware. They were stabbing specific places, the eyes, the neck, and the chest. Those plastic knives are small, but the way they were strategically stabbing, it did a lot of damage. Blood was everywhere. I swear I tried to help. I screamed, but no one seemed to hear me. I tried to take away the children's weapons, but if I took away the knife, they would just start digging their fingers into the wounds. I couldn't control 30 kids at once. And then there was Derek, standing on the table, his arm moving back and forth as he stabbed the air. Finally, I rushed at him, grabbing him down off the table. We fell onto the floor with him on top of me. Danny, did he hurt you? Daisy, number. But his face changed from that smile to a slack frown, his eyes closed. His body was limp on me. I realized that he was dead. I looked around the cafeteria. They were all dead. Hyperventilating. 30 dead kids, and I couldn't move. I couldn't. Why didn't anyone hear me scream? Where did the blood go? There was so much blood, but then it was gone. Danny, thank you for telling me this. Daisy, please tell them I didn't do it. I would never. How could the blood disappear? According to the internet, Daisy Alvarez poisoned her entire kindergarten class. She put it in their chocolate milk. The police found her with the bodies of the children heaped on her. She was crying and shaking. There was no reason for the crime and no sign she was emotionally unstable. There were 29 children dead, and there was also no one in her class named Derek. These cases, they are not normal crimes. I don't know what to make of it. My friend Bree says to leave it alone and stop investigating. I think she's afraid I'll come across something I don't want to know. But I need answers. I have spent the past 24 hours listening to as many tapes as possible, without transcribing them. The transcription process is extremely slow, and I just wanted to try and gain as much information as possible. I have also read every single comment on every single tape I've posted. Even though a lot of you are still insisting I'm insane, the rest of you are really helping me piece together who my dad was and what he did. It's for you that I write these tapes. The rest of you can rot in hell. Anyway, I listened to over 30 tapes. I didn't sleep. Each tape is creepier than the next, all full of murderers and psychos. But then I got this one tape, which I did transcribe because it's not like the rest. It's just my dad. He is talking directly into the mic and he's talking to me. I don't know when he recorded this, but it's definitely my father's voice. The content is indescribable, so I'll just post it. There is one blip, I guess you'd call it, at the very end. But you'll see once you read it. Samson, if I'm alive, stop listening right now. I am not kidding. You should not have found this box or these tapes. They are not for you yet. However, if I'm dead or missing, you must listen to this tape incredibly carefully. I have chosen each word precisely. I know you well. I know that you'll be interested in these tapes and probably want to share them. You shared some of them already, haven't you? I know that you will have been confused about some of the things you heard in the tapes. That's because I have been lying to you. I am not a cop. To be honest, cops are useless. They focus on petty individuals and completely ignore the big picture. I am part of that big picture. You are too, but that's for another time. Please believe me now. I didn't completely lie. I do catch bad guys. I do protect and serve, but not against human criminals. We call them friends. Some people call them demons, but that's not accurate. That's just the name religion has given them, and we don't want to associate with that church nonsense. Read this carefully. There is no God, no angels, no benevolent force in the sky who is protecting us. The only people protecting humanity are people like me. Friends are entities who take over the bodies of humans. It can be anyone. It is anyone. There are more of them than there are of us. They mimic us and can fool almost anyone. Do not confuse their mimicry for actual humanity. They are not human. Their sole purpose is to cause pain, fear, and death to our world. My job is to sift through their fallout. I interview the victims of their crimes, those still alive. I also interview the people they inhabit. They often use the bodies for a matter of months or years and then move on once we catch them. And the people, they don't even realize they were possessed. They might have some memories, but they are contorted and false. Someone might go on a murdering rampage but believe they were frolicking in a meadow. The friends, it's part of how they torture the bodies. They make the human host look insane, being called crazy. That can be a fate worse than death. I know you'll believe me because I know you've done your research. Also, you're my son. They know who you are and will be coming for you. You need to know some rules. First, do not agree with them. This means never saying yes to anything. Second, they love to talk about their crimes. If you need to take the heat off of yourself, just ask them about their killings. Third, the friends are not alive and cannot be killed, but they can be contained. They have to be contained in a human body. It is a necessary sacrifice. Fourth, they get in through the tear ducts. Whatever you do not cry in front of them. Don't cry at all. You cannot trust anyone. This is why we call them friends, because we cannot forget that they can infect anyone and use their bodies to do whatever they want. They might be inhabiting the person who is closest to you. They know we call them friends and seem rather fond of the word. Keep listening to the tapes. I hope you find this sooner rather than later. You have to show these tapes to as many people as possible. The more people who know about the friends, the more people can protect themselves. I can't save everyone. As hard as I try, I can't. But I hope I can save you. Suddenly another voice starts talking. It's a sing-song voice that variates between high and low. It interrupts my dad. It's speaking in a language I don't know, but I've tried to sound it out. Sus etiam nuper. Vos salvifiari non potestus. My dad's voice comes back. Don't trust them, don't listen to them. Listen to Bree, she can see them. You can trust her. I have to go, but I love you, Timmy. Can this be true? I texted Bree about it and she hasn't responded. For those of you who are curious, Bree is a family friend. She's been in my life since I was a kid. My dad and her were close. She's my only friend now since Dad died. I just heard someone knocking on my door. I called out to them asking what they wanted. They say they worked with my dad. I don't know if I should open the door. They keep asking me to. They say it'll just take a few minutes if I agree to let them in. I think I'm going to get out the back door and get to a safe place. I need time to think. But I'm bringing my laptop and the tapes. I'll find more answers. I have to. There will be no tape on this story. This is Bree. I have borrowed Johnny's laptop so I can write some things down. I also need him to read this, but I can't tell him in person just yet. I'll return his laptop tomorrow. He doesn't know I took it. He probably won't until he reads this. I'm sorry, Sammy, I just can't see you right now. There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and you are a big one. But I wanted to explain some things to you, the readers. You have lapped up his posts like an alcoholic. Some of you seem addicted to his suffering and the suffering of others in the tapes. I'm not saying this isn't normal, but it's important to understand this about yourself. This obsession is dangerous. It makes you want to see a friend, maybe talk to one. Please, for the love of God, do not seek out the friends. Do not respond if they contact you. Do not agree to meet with them. Do not agree to anything. I know a lot of you are probably doubtful if any of this is true, but let me assure you, friends are real and are closer to you than you'd think. Because I know some of you won't believe me, I'm going to share my story. I also want to share it for you, Johnny, because you are like my own child. I've known you since you were just a little thing. I love you very much, so does your dad. But let me get back to my story. Like most people, I grew up completely oblivious. I lived in a rich suburb with big houses and lots of money. My parents were loving and dedicated. I grew up incredibly privileged and never even knew to feel lucky. Most people would kill for a life like mine, but all that changed on my 15th birthday. I don't know if there is some significance to the age 15 or if it was just coincidence, but things were incredibly different. I had a big party planned. I invited 5 of my closest friends. They arrived, but all of them were different. It's hard to explain to people who don't see them, but I'll try. When a friend takes over a person, they look almost exactly the same. It is really impressive how adept they have become at imitating our human qualities. They stuff themselves into the body and walk around as if wearing a human suit. But they have 2 flaws that they cannot change. The first, which you heard about, is that they cannot eat. I discovered this when they tried to have me hospitalized, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The second flaw, the twitches. It's as if the body is animated crudely and there are some small, almost invisible errors. The body's outline twitches. It's sort of like erratic breathing. That's the friend adjusting to the body. They twitch and flail like wearing an itchy sweater. On my birthdays, all of my friends looked like this. At first, I didn't understand. I just knew something was wrong. I refused to interact with them and shut myself in my room until they left. My parents begged me to come out, but I wouldn't. My friends left, but I stayed in my room. My mother tried to talk with me through the door. My father said I was delusional. They threatened to call the police. I finally relented. They took me to a doctor who had the same twitchy outline. I wouldn't speak to her. She told me I was crazy. She said I had an eating disorder, which is completely false. I started to distrust everyone. I saw so many people with the twitchy outline. It was overwhelming. But what changed my life is when I saw my parents had changed too. I couldn't handle it. The 2 people closest to me, the people who were supposed to love and protect me. It was horrible. I didn't know they were called friends back then, so I called them copies. I didn't know why they were there or what they wanted, but I knew it wasn't good. I snuck out that night with just a backpack full of clothing and some food, and that's how I lived for a long time. I was a street person. They didn't start coming after me until about a year later. I think they knew I could see them, which obviously posed a huge threat to them. They needed me to either die or be occupied. I didn't know their rules back then. It was just luck that I never cried in front of them. It was my own damn stubbornness that saved me. Well, that and the switchblade I found in a dumpster. The first one to come after me was in the body of a young woman. She had been watching me for a few days, creeping closer and closer. Finally, she had me cornered in the middle of the night. Even though it was so many years ago, I remember what she said. In an odd voice that alternated between high and low, she said, "You've been a bad girl." She came at me with her hands. I think she was planning to strangle or suffocate me, but she didn't know I had a knife. I stabbed her in the neck as hard as I could. Her body sputtered and then fell limp. I watched the twitches end and a puff of yellow smoke disappeared into the air. She was dead. I thought I was killing them, but I wasn't. They can't be killed. I was just killing the innocent people they inhabited. But what else could I have done? By the end, I had convinced myself that I was dead and that this was hell. I couldn't understand a world where I could kill people and people wanted to kill me. Johnny, your dad found me when I was 26. I was tired of running and hiding, but it was the only life I had. I think if he hadn't have found me, the friends would have killed me. My fight was all but gone, but your dad saved me. He told me about the friends. He told me about my special gift, being able to see them. There are only 15 of us who can do it. He inducted me into the organization. I have a purpose now. Instead of killing people, I am helping people survive. I know you've always just seen me as a family friend, but I've also been tasked to protect you. Do you remember that time when you were 8, and that policeman said your dad had asked him to pick you up? Well, I showed up just in time to take you home and away from that man. And remember when you met that girl online and went to meet up with her, but you got stood up? That's because I took her down first. They were friends, Sam. They were out to get you. I don't know if this is making sense. I've never been good at writing. But please believe me, your dad is a good man. He may have lied to you, but it was for your own good. We knew that this might happen someday, but we didn't expect it so soon. I have to go. One of them is watching me. It's so weird when they are in children. It makes me doubt myself. But I know that little girl is one of them. She isn't touching the bagel in front of her. I'll have to take care of her now. But I promise to return Samson's laptop tomorrow. I hope he reads this. I hope you all read this and understand that this is not just a story. It's a battle. And right now we're losing. I don't know what to believe, but I know that I am to blame. I think now that my dad is alive somewhere. I don't know if he is being controlled, but I don't think he is dead. I read Bree's post. I have read all of your comments, and I just listened to the worst tape in the box. I feel numb. I never should have started this. It began as just a way to reconnect with my dad and maybe share some of his work, but now it is threatening my life. I'm sorry, I'm writing this from a motel room. I've changed motels 5 times. I don't feel safe staying in one place. And then my laptop was gone and I panicked. I had no connection to the outside world. Obviously, Bree returned it, but she still hasn't spoken to me in person. But I know why now. I'm not safe. Just read the tape. Danny. Was it 14 or 15? Mr. Friendly. This voice is the same as Mr. Friendly's in the other tape, but I'm not going to say it's him for sure. It could be something else. 15. Danny. Why did you leave this one alive? Mr. Friendly. Silly friend. Because I know how much this one means to you. Danny. But wouldn't it have been worse for me if you had? Mr. Friendly. You have no idea how much worse for you it is going to get. Danny. Tell me then. Mr. Friendly. In time friend, impatient friend. We have many secrets, but we like telling you. You are a good listener. Danny. I have learned how to listen. Mr. Friendly. Yes, we can teach you much more than that if you agree to it. Danny. You know my answer. Mr. Friendly. Then you are dead already. Danny. We can see you now, you know. We know what you look like, Mr. Friendly. You can always see us, we just look like you. Human sacks, skin suits, messy friends. Danny. You know what I'm saying. We found the girl. Mr. Friendly. The voice sounds angry. The girl should not have survived. Danny. We have her and you'll never get to her. She is safe. Mr. Friendly. Safe. Stupid friend. No one is safe. Danny. Why? Tell me why. Mr. Friendly. So impatient. Maybe I should bite this tongue out of this body to calm you down. Danny. Pause. Tell me what you did to the 14 other children. Mr. Friendly. Tricky friend. I made them wait in line while I pried their fingernails off. Do you know the pain of having a nail ripped off your finger? The little ones were bleeding like goats. Then I painted their faces with their blood. I made stars and hearts. I painted their lips like clowns. Little sobbing clowns. Danny. What else? I know you did more. Mr. Friendly. Of course, I cut them open from chin to belly button. The human body is so messy, it just pours out. So much goo. It was delicious. Danny. Why? Why did you do this? Mr. Friendly, laughing. You know why. Danny, is that what you did to Alexandria? Mr. Friendly, the voice becomes heavy with some emotion, maybe excitement. You miss her. Danny, answer me. Mr. Friendly, stupid friend. I do not take orders from you, Danny. Fine then. Pause. A trade. Mr. Friendly, a trade? Danny, I will agree if you answer me completely and honestly. There is banging as if someone is pounding on the door. I can sort of make out a feminine voice shouting, but her words aren't audible. Danny, ignore her. I will agree if you give me this answer. Mr. Friendly. Oh yes, friend. We like this trade. We find this trade very good. Danny. What happened to Alexandria? Mr. Friendly. The same thing that will happen to your son. There is a sound of a door slamming open and people rushing in. Then there is a smack as if a body is hurled against a wall. Shouting is coming from everywhere. A woman says something like, "Bring him back." Mr. Friendly is laughing, but the laughter is suddenly cut short. There is silence for a long time, maybe 4 full minutes. Then I hear a boy's voice. Boy, Dad, where are we? Danny. Sounds as if he was crying. We're heading home now, Sammy. Boy, my head hurts. Danny. Don't worry, it'll be okay. Angrily. Max, stop the recording. It was me, the boy was me. I know my own voice, and I think Mr. Friendly was talking through me. The friends spared my life so they could talk to my dad. So my dad would have to watch as those horrible things came out of my mouth. And Alexandria, that was my mother. I was told she died while giving birth to me. I was named after her. My real name is Alexander. I'm sorry I've been away so long. As you can imagine, changing motels has been stressful. I have decided to stay in one place since I don't think anyone is after me anymore. I am pretty safe. I have rented out a room in an old woman's house. She is kind. She could see the sadness inside me. I think that's why she lets me live with her. I have been feeling much better, no more fear anymore. Although typing has been a bit difficult for me, so I apologize for my writing. I'm sorry. For some reason my fingers are twitching BG in such an unpleasant way. Maybe I am coming down with something. I've read all of your poor comments. Some of you claim that my mother posted, but I can't find it. I have never used Beffer, so I'm a bit confused. Can someone please send me the link? Did she say where she was located? I would like to find her. I can travel to HGR. I just want to be with her. I also miss my father. Some of you say he is alive, and I would like that very much. If he is reading this, he will know where to find me. I can wait a long time, don't worry. I'm going to end post a new tape today. It's my favorite. You are excited, wouldn't you agree? Jackson. Testing. It is 7 a.m. on January 5th, 1980. My name is Jackson Crawley. I am conducting this initial interview alone, although my assistant will help in management of the subject and note-taking. The subject will not tell me its name. The subject appears cooperative, otherwise it has stopped hurting itself and is now amenable to communication. I will attempt to converse. Ryan, can you undo the mask? There is the sound of a buckle unlocking and spit in someone's mouth. Friend. Now unchain me, Jackson. I do not take orders from you. Friend. Not yet, human, not yet. Jackson. Are you saying you are not human? Pause. Why won't you answer my questions? Friend. I do answer your questions, human. I always answer, but I do not agree to anything. Jackson. Is that a rule? Friend. We have many rules. Jackson. Ryan, can you make sure to make note? Friend. Yes, Ryan, such a tasty boy, just like your grandmother. Ryan. How did it... Jackson. Ryan, do not engage the subject. Friend. It doesn't matter. He will be ours so soon. Jackson. Are you threatening us? Friend. Not us, human, just him, the British one. Jackson. He is just an assistant. Talk to me instead. Tell me more of your rules. Friend. I will tell you more if you agree to unchain me. Jackson. Didn't you just say not to agree to anything? Friend. Clever human. You are exactly as they said you'd be. Jackson. Who said? Pause. Are you saying there are more of you? You have friends? Friend. Friends? Yes, I have friends. Jackson. You seem to like that word, friend. It feels good in this mouth. Jackson. Whose mouth are you in? Friend. A father. We like parents. We like making them kill their babies. Yes, the bubbles of their last breaths under the bathwater. Jackson. You liking killing? Friend. Oh, friend. Killing is what we do best. Jackson. Then why use human bodies to do it? Why not just do it yourselves? Friend. Our forms are not of this world. We cannot touch you from the outside, only the inside. Jackson. If you are not of this world, what world are you from? Friend. The world of bone. You will visit there, friend, but not now. Jackson. You called me friend. What should I call you? Friend. Pause. You can call me friend as well. Jackson. Okay, friend. How many of you are there? Friend. Enough. Jackson. Do you wish us harm? Friend. We wish for nothing. Jackson. How long have you been on Earth? Friend. Stupid friend. You ask the wrong questions. Friend. I will tell you if you agree to my terms. Jackson. Pause. What are your terms? Friend. I will answer any question you have if you just say yes. Jackson. Just the word? Friend. Just the word. Ryan. Yes. Jackson. What the hell are you doing? Ryan. I know you'll never do it, Malcolm. Jackson. Don't say that name. Friend. Stupid friend. There is a sudden thud as if something heavy hits the ground. Jackson gasps. There is a high-pitched squealing and then silence. Jackson. Pause. Ryan. Ryan. No, not Ryan anymore. Jackson. Why? Ryan. Not all friends are as clever as you. A chair topples over and Jackson yells for backup. Ryan begins screaming. Jackson. Wait, you said you would answer my questions. Ryan, stop screaming. Ask quickly now, friend. This body is losing blood. Jackson. Why did you come here? Ryan. Clever friend, smart friend. Finally you asked the right question. Jackson. Tell me. You agreed. Ryan. I did. We came here for your daughter. Over the past few months, I've watched my brother transform into someone I barely recognize, and I'm beginning to believe it has to do with a tree we discovered in our childhood. Before I start, I want to make it clear that I'm not here to be judged. I just need to get this off my chest. My brother, let's call him Henry, has become obsessed with something we experienced as kids, and I'm afraid of what he might do. Henry and I grew up in a house in Canada, in a region where the city meets the forest. It was a peaceful place, almost idyllic, especially in the fall, when the leaves formed a golden carpet and the woods felt almost magical. Like many children, we spent hours exploring the area. It was during one of those days when I was 6 and Henry was 10 that we found a lone tree in the forest, not far from our home in Canada, just a bit deeper into the woods. It was massive and stood slightly apart from all the other trees, as if it had its own little circle that made it the center of attention, like a stage. We spent that entire autumn playing around the tree. We created a sort of innocent ritual. We'd gather fallen leaves, make crowns out of them, and leave them near the roots as an offering. We pretended the tree was our secret guardian. Even when winter came and our visits became less frequent, the connection with the tree remained. To me, it was just a child's game. To Henry, I now see it might have been something more. As we grew older, our visits became less frequent, but we'd still go back every now and then as a reminder of simpler times. When I was 20, I got an offer to study abroad in France. I spent 3 years there, away from my family. It was an amazing experience, but I missed home, especially my parents and Henry. We stayed in touch through messages and calls, but it just wasn't the same. When I returned home, I was surprised. Everything looked exactly the same as when I left. The house, the yard, even my parents. It was as if nothing had changed. Henry seemed the same too, but one thing caught my attention. He had started visiting the tree much more often. He would leave at dusk, always 2 days a week, and return after dark. His hands were often scratched and dirty with soil. When I asked about it, he gave vague answers like, "I just like walking at night." I thought it was strange, but I didn't realize how deep this went. Some time later, our mother fell ill. She was diagnosed with cancer, and my parents decided to move in with my aunt, whose house was closer to a good hospital. Henry and I stayed behind, living alone, which made me notice his routine and the changes in him even more. He had always been a calm person, the kind to stay in his room playing video games or watching movies, but now he seemed more introspective. He spent hours locked in his room or out in the forest. I knew he was going to the tree, but I didn't think it was anything too odd. It was nostalgic for us, right? Henry always had his peculiarities, but after our parents moved out, I started noticing the truly strange things. I'd already observed that he would leave for the forest twice a week at dusk and come back when the moon was high in the sky. He said it was to clear his head, maybe to relive childhood memories, and I believed him. At first. But things got stranger when I began noticing the details. He'd return covered in dirt, with small cuts not only on his hands but all up his arms, and there was a smell I couldn't place. It was like wet soil mixed with something metallic. I asked a few times what he was doing out there, and he always shrugged and said, "Oh, nothing much, I just like walking around." I was starting to get used to it, but then something happened that made me lose sleep. It was one of those nights when the house made those usual noises, the creaks of wood adjusting to the cold. They always annoyed me, but I'd learned to ignore them. That night, however, I woke up thirsty and the water bottle by my bed was empty. So I went to the kitchen to refill it. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed Henry's bedroom door was slightly ajar. That wasn't unusual, but something felt off. The light wasn't on, and when I looked more closely, I realized the room was empty. Henry wasn't home. I thought maybe he had gone out to buy something or just gone for a walk because he couldn't sleep. But something inside me whispered otherwise. I knew he was in the forest. Out of caution, I decided to stay up until he returned. I turned on my computer and tried to distract myself, but the clock seemed to drag on. It wasn't until the numbers read 3:33 that I heard the sound of the back door opening and quietly closing. It might sound silly, but that time of night always gave me chills. I'd heard ghost stories about 3 a.m. when I was a kid, the witching hour, and I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. Still, I decided to keep an eye on him. The next night, I did the same thing. I waited, and there he was, leaving at dusk and coming back at exactly 3:33. This happened every single night that week. When I finally worked up the courage to ask him about it, he brushed it off. I asked him directly, "Why are you going out so much at night, Henry?" He looked at me for a moment, wearing his usual distant smile, and simply said, "Sometimes I just need some fresh air." But there was something about the way he said it. It felt rehearsed. He avoided eye contact and immediately changed the subject to something more cheerful. Okay, I've given enough context. Let me get straight to the point. This happened a few weeks ago and I really don't know what to think. I'll try to tell this as clearly as I can, but it's hard to piece everything together. After so much time watching my brother sneak out at night, now every day, not just twice a week as I'd originally thought, I decided to confront him. It wasn't just curiosity, I was genuinely worried. So one night as he was getting ready to leave again, I took the initiative and said, "I'm coming with you." I thought he'd get annoyed, but he just looked at me and laughed. "All right, brave one, but don't start crying halfway through, okay?" I rolled my eyes but felt relieved. He seemed like the same old Henry, playful as if everything was just one big joke. As we walked down the trail, he made a point of pointing out every root I could trip over, sometimes even stopping to grab my hand on purpose just to tease me. "You're slower than I remember," he said, laughing. "Maybe because you're a lunatic who comes out here in the middle of the night," I shot back. It was almost comforting, until we reached the tree. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. Henry grew quieter, more serious. He didn't have to say anything. It was clear that this place meant a lot to him. It was almost like he was silently asking for respect with the way he looked at the tree. And well, it was just a tree, or at least it should have been. There was nothing obviously strange about it. But as I looked closer, I began to notice the details. The bark was flawless, without any fungus or moss, as if someone cleaned it every day. And around it there were all sorts of things scattered about. Crowns made of leaves, pine cones painted in vibrant colors, hand-carved wooden trinkets, even some jewelry that clearly didn't belong there. It looked like some kind of altar. "Aquí está continuación traducida para o inglés." "What is all this?" I asked. "Just a way to keep things organized," he replied, his tone flat as if he didn't want to talk about it. I stood there for a while, looking, trying to understand. But in the end, it just looked like a tree. No matter how bizarre his care for it seemed, I decided to ignore it. Maybe I was being a jerk for judging my brother's weird hobbies. For a few weeks, everything went back to normal, or at least I convinced myself that it was fine. Henry kept going out at night, and I tried to get used to his peculiarities. Until that happened, it was exactly midnight when I heard the back door open. I went to the living room and saw Henry coming in, but this time he was different. His hands were covered in dried blood, and there was dirt all over his body. On his arms, legs, even his face. His clothes were filthy as if he'd been crawling on the forest floor. "Henry, what happened?" I asked, trying not to panic. He barely looked at me. "I'm taking a shower," he mumbled, walking past me. I just stood there, frozen. It was obvious something was very wrong. I waited until I heard the shower turn off, ready to confront him as soon as he came out. But before I could say anything, I heard his bedroom door lock. "Henry?" I knocked on the door. "Are you okay? Did you get hurt?" "Go to sleep," he replied, his voice muffled. He didn't sound angry, just exhausted, like he'd just endured the longest day of his life. I kept calling out, insisting, but he didn't respond again. Eventually, I gave up and went to my room. But I couldn't sleep. The blood, the dirt, the silence, it wouldn't leave my mind. Something was terribly wrong, and I knew I wouldn't rest until I figured out what it was. This was just a few days ago before everything. At the time, I didn't know what to think, but now, looking back, I realized this was the turning point. Maybe I should have done something then and there, but it's hard to act when you're not sure if you're losing your mind or not. Here's what happened. Henry had left the house in the middle of the afternoon as he usually did, saying he was going for a walk. Nothing out of the ordinary. But I was still stewing over everything that had happened, the dirt, the blood, the strange way he acted around the tree. So while he was out, I decided to check his room. I know it sounds invasive, and I did feel bad about it, but I needed answers. As soon as I opened the door, a strange smell hit me. It was a mix of wet soil and iron, like the metallic scent you get when you cut your finger. It was strong and seemed to grow worse the longer I stayed in there. The first thing I noticed was how the room looked normal from the outside, but once inside, nothing was actually clean. The curtains were drawn, as always, but up close I could see they were stained with dirt. In the corners of the room, the floor had small dark stains that I didn't want to think about. Then I opened his bedside drawer, and that's when things got truly bizarre. Inside, there was an old, crumpled piece of paper, smeared with dirt. It looked like it had been ripped out of a school notebook, and it was written in crayon. in a way that clearly resembled a child's handwriting. What did it say? Something like, "I promise to be nice to the tree." The strangest part was the signature. He had used his thumbprint, and around it was what could only be dried blood. At the time, I tried to rationalize it, like, okay, this is just kid stuff. A silly game he never threw away. But why was it still there, and why was it smeared with blood? I didn't have much time to think about it. I heard the front door opening. Henry was back. I closed everything as quickly as I could and left his room trying to look casual. When he walked into the kitchen, his pants were dirty with soil as usual, but otherwise nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He grabbed a glass of water and looked at me with that goofy smile of his. "Everything okay?" he asked, as if absolutely nothing strange was going on. I stared at him, trying to decide whether or not to ask. In the end, I just said, "Yeah, fine." "Cool, I'm gonna take a shower." And that was it. He left the kitchen, and I stayed there completely lost with 1,000 questions racing through my mind. Later that same night, that's when things got truly weird. I was in the living room trying not to think about anything, when I heard heavy footsteps on the porch. I went to the window and saw Henry standing outside. He was holding what looked like a wooden amulet, and he was singing. I couldn't understand the language. It sounded made up. But there was something about it that didn't sound normal. It was deep, almost echo-like. And then he stopped. Slowly, he turned his head in my direction, like he knew I was watching, and he smiled. A smile that was utterly bizarre, accompanied by an even stranger growl. After that, he simply turned and walked away, heading toward the tree. I knew that was where he was going. At that moment, I didn't know what to think. Now I know that wasn't just in my head. A few days have passed, and things seem to have only gotten worse since then. The house is constantly dirty with soil in the corners. Henry spends hours and hours away from home, and the creaking of the floorboards always starts up at night. I keep hearing the sound of the shower running, and when I'm in the living room or kitchen, I can hear my brother singing in that strange language. I swear on everything holy, I've seen him smiling in that creepy way out of the corner of my eye. But every time I look directly at him, he's back to normal. I don't know if it's some kind of prank, but it's starting to get seriously disturbing. After that night when I saw Henry standing outside and looking at me with that eerie smile, I tried to ignore it. I pretended everything was fine and went on with my life. But the truth is that image was stuck in my head, along with all the other strange things that had happened. This morning I finally gave in. I called our parents. They dodged the topic as usual, but one comment kept echoing in my mind. My mom said something about how the tree was our special place, and how after I left, Henry became obsessed with it. According to her, he spent hours there, alone, as if trying to relive the memories of our childhood. I don't know why, but that made me feel guilty. I decided to put the thought aside for now. After hanging up, I decided I needed to talk to him, lay everything out in the open. But before I could leave my room, I saw something out of the corner of my eye. On the doorway threshold, there was a trail of blood. Not a lot, but enough to freeze me in my tracks. I followed the trail to the living room, and that's when I noticed the smell. Wet earth and something metallic, strong, almost unbearable. The blood led to the front door. When I opened it, I saw a perfect circle of salt around the house. And the strangest part? There was a line of coarse salt stretching across the yard, through the grass, disappearing into the forest. I don't know why, but I just knew it led to the tree. Before I could make any decisions, I heard a loud bang from the back porch, as if something had slammed into the house with immense force, and I wasn't wrong. When I got there, I saw a deer. It was smashing its head against the glass door of the porch, repeatedly over and over, staining it with blood every time it hit harder. What the fuck was that? Okay, I'm no expert, but that definitely isn't normal anywhere. What the actual hell? That damn deer kept smashing its head into the glass until it broke and fell forward, collapsing like a rag doll. The thing was dead. Not because it had smashed its head into the glass so many times, but because its stomach had been ripped open, as if some beast had torn it apart and left the remains to rot. I threw up. A lot. Can you blame me? There was a dead deer in my kitchen that somehow looked like it had been decomposing for months. I was done. No, I was exhausted. I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't know what kind of twisted nightmare this was, but it had to end. I had to put a stop to it. I grabbed my phone and a hatchet hanging on the wall in the living room, and I marched into that cursed forest, heading straight for that damn tree. I knew it was all the tree's fault. I could feel it. So I was going to cut the problem at its root. Literally. I'm not sure how to explain what happened next. My hand was shaking so much that I almost dropped my phone while following that trail of coarse salt. It was already strange enough that the salt was there, but the blood that seemed to mix along the way made my stomach turn. There was no logical explanation for it. The trees around me seemed more alive, or maybe more dead, as if they were sucking something out of the earth. The roots were everywhere, intertwining like pulsating veins. With each step, the air grew denser, almost sticky. When I finally reached the tree, I almost didn't recognize it. It was surrounded by a circle of salt, lit by candles that flickered despite there being no wind. There were animal bodies, rabbits, birds, even a dog, arranged around the trunk like a macabre offering. There was something deeply wrong about it all. But before I could process everything, my eyes landed on Henry. He was kneeling in front of the tree, murmuring something. I think he was praying. His hands were clasped together, fingers stained red and covered in dirt. Even from a distance, something felt different. Henry had always been thin, but now he seemed elongated, as if his body no longer fit the normal proportions of a human. His clothes were covered in dried blood and mud. My instinct was to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. I hesitated. That was when I made the worst decision possible. I took a step forward and stepped on a dry twig. The sound was like an explosion in the oppressive silence. Henry immediately stopped praying. For a few seconds there was no sound, just that unbearable silence. Then he laughed. First softly, almost like a whisper, but the sound grew louder, becoming something inhuman. He slowly stood up, almost mechanically, and turned to face me. I almost vomited. Henry was smiling, but it wasn't a normal smile. It was too wide. His teeth looked bigger and sharper, and his eyes... God. His eyes. The whites of his eyes were overtaken by black veins, and his pupils were so dilated they covered almost the entire iris. He looked happy to see me, as if this was the most anticipated reunion of his life. You arrived, just in time, he said, his voice hoarse, but with an almost childish tone. We can do the ritual together like we used to. My body froze. Then I realized he was talking about those stupid games we played when we were kids, pretending to talk to the tree like it was a guardian or something like that. It was just a game. At least that's what I thought. Henry, what is this? What the hell is going on here? I asked, trying to sound firm, but my voice came out shaky. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he tilted his head to the side, still smiling. You abandoned me, he suddenly said, the smile disappearing. His voice came out loud, almost a shout. You abandoned me, he suddenly said, the smile disappearing. His voice came out loud, almost a shout. You left me here alone, and I prayed every day for you to come back. The tree talked to me. It listened when no one else did. I gave my prayers, confessed my sins, and it rewarded me. It brought you back. I took a step back. Henry had never spoken like this before. He had always been too playful to get angry. I couldn't even remember the last time he yelled at me. Now it seemed like all the repressed anger was coming out at once. Henry, you're scaring me, I tried to say, but he interrupted me. Scaring? I should be scared. You have no idea what I've been through here, alone with her. But now it's okay. We're together again, and we just need to renew the contract, that's all. He started walking toward me slowly, the macabre smile returning. You'll understand, you'll see. The tree is good. She loves us. We can do rituals together, make offerings like we used to. I had no idea what was going on, but hell no, I wasn't going to be part of this sick thing. I raised my axe and threatened Henry. It was me or him. Even if I had to go through my brother, my goal was to cut down that tree. Henry, back off, I'm not joking. I'm going to end this, and you'll go back to normal, I yelled, hoping he would hear me. But he didn't stop. When he started walking toward me with that smile that seemed more and more inhuman, I didn't know if fear or anger was stronger. Henry was unrecognizable. The playful boy who always followed me like a puppy was now this deformed figure, his voice carrying an authority that should never belong to him. I tried to argue, to say that this wasn't him, that we needed to leave, but he just laughed. I'm not going anywhere, I can't. Not after everything I've done for us. You'll thank me, you'll see, it's going to be fun. Just like old times. That's when he lunged at me. I don't know if he meant to hurt me or just hold me, but instinct is a powerful thing. My hands found the axe I had brought, just in case. But he was too fast. Henry grabbed my arm before I could fully react, and his fingers were so strong I felt him tearing into my skin with his nails. Blood started flowing down my wrist, and the pain brought me back to reality. This wasn't my brother. I shoved him with a force I didn't know I had, knocking Henry, or whatever this thing was, to the ground and grabbing my axe with both hands ready to strike back. "You think you can stop me? You think you can undo what the tree has given us?" he shouted, his black eyes locked on mine. That's when I saw my chance. I used all the strength I had and swung the axe. He tried to dodge, but I was done with all of this. The axe hit his shoulder and he screamed, but the sound wasn't human. It was something deeper, almost like the wind howling through the tree roots. The next strike was definitive. His head was no longer part of his body. The blood flowing into the earth was proof of that. I swear I could hear him grunt even after I struck his neck with the axe. And then, silence. I stood there frozen with the axe still in my hand and my brother's body in front of me. But it didn't end there. I needed to put an end to this. I approached that damned tree, ready to use the lumberjack skills my own brother had taught me. But the voices started as a whisper, but soon became deafening. It was hard to tell what they were saying, but all the words pushed me toward the tree. I saw faces in the shadows, figures that weren't there. I could swear I saw the tree's roots moving, trying to grab me like a mother's warm embrace. I knew I needed to get out of there. I couldn't fight it. Something wasn't right. It was just a matter of cutting down the tree and everything would end, but why did I feel like it was so wrong to do that? I dropped the axe right there, but I'm not stupid enough to wait for something to happen. I ran. I ran like never before. I didn't look back as I stumbled on the way back to the house, heading toward the car, my hands still covered in my own blood. I got in the car, slammed the door, and only when I turned the key did I realize I was shaking so much I could barely drive. Even so, I took a deep breath and didn't hesitate to start the car, leaving as fast as I could. The whole way I could hear whispers, so many whispers. I drove for a long time until I found a cheap motel on the side of the road. I definitely wasn't going to sleep there, but it was either that or risk a car accident. Honestly, I don't know how they let me into the motel all covered in blood. I just know I don't have much time, and I'm trying to write all of this down before it's too late, to warn as many people as possible. Because I can hear my brother's laugh in the midst of the voices, and when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw something in my eyes. Something that shouldn't be there. If anyone is reading this, I beg you, burn that tree. I have a lot of experiences to share from my 2 years as a ranger in Silver Pine Ridge National Park. I've dealt with frantic campers, missing hikers, and even a bear or two. The work was never boring, but it wasn't always glamorous either. Verifying trails, answering calls, and assuring guests that the squirrels weren't rabid and that the park maps were accurate if you could read them were all part of a routine. I had developed a deep affection for the smell of the trees, the nighttime cricket chirp, and the way the stars appeared to be much closer. I didn't object when the superiors informed me that I would be relocating to the fire watch tower on Raven's Crest. Sincerely, I was anticipating the solitude. The tower sat perched on the edge of a rocky outcrop high above the valley. From the small wraparound deck, I could see almost the entire park, a patchwork of evergreen forests, meandering streams, and rugged cliffs. There were caves down in the valley, their dark mouths barely visible from the tower. They'd been off limits for decades, the official reasoning being unstable rock formations. It was the kind of bureaucratic phrasing that didn't invite questions, and I'd never had a reason to give them much thought. My job didn't include spelunking. My first week on the post was quiet, peaceful even. Mornings began with coffee brewed on a small propane stove. The scent of pine filtered through the open windows as I sat at the desk, logging observations into the station's weathered notebook. Afternoons, I'd settle into the worn chair by the tall windows, scanning the horizon with binoculars for smoke or anything unusual. Evenings were serene, the sky streaked with hues of orange and purple as the sun dipped below the horizon. Nights, I'd fall asleep to the soft hum of the radio, the occasional static-laden message from other towers breaking the silence. By the fifth day, I'd fallen into a comfortable routine. It was the kind of quiet you could sink into, the kind that makes you feel like the world has slowed down just for you. That morning I brewed my coffee as usual and stepped onto the deck to take in the view. The valley stretched out before me, shrouded in a gentle mist that clung to the treetops. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth. It was perfect. "Ethan, you there?" Leah's voice crackled through the static-laden radio, slicing through the late afternoon stillness that had settled over the watchtower like a heavy blanket. I straightened in my chair, pulling the mic closer. "Here, what's up?" "There's smoke down in the valley," she said, her voice tinged with a mix of urgency and fatigue. "Northeast side, near the old mining trail. It's faint, but it's there." I stood and peered out the tower's wide windows, scanning the treetops and ridges. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, golden rays over the endless expanse of green. My eyes caught nothing unusual, but Leah's reports were rarely wrong. "Think you can check it out?" she asked, her voice crackling again before cutting back to clarity. "On it," I replied without hesitation. I grabbed my weathered field bag from its hook near the door, stuffing in a few essentials. A canteen of water, my notebook, and the compact first aid kit I never left behind. As I swung the bag over my shoulder, I took a final glance around the tower, making sure everything was in order. The radio crackled faintly in the background, a constant companion in these isolated stretches of wilderness. Locking up the door behind me, I descended the narrow metal stairs with practiced ease. The tower creaked softly as the wind picked up, rustling the trees below. At the base, my Wrangler waited, dusted with a fine coat of pollen and dirt from countless trips into the forest. I threw my bag into the passenger seat and climbed in, pausing for a moment to let the familiar hum of the engine settle into my chest as I turned the key. The vehicle rumbled to life, the sound resonating in the otherwise silent woods. The drive to the valley wasn't long, 20 minutes at most, but the deeper I ventured into the trees, the quieter the world became. Gone were the distant chirps of birds and the faint rustle of leaves that usually accompanied me. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. The Wrangler's tires crunched over the gravel as I navigated the last stretch of road leading into the camp. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm amber glow over the valley. The light felt distant somehow, as though the world had slowed just a bit, suspended in an uneasy calm. As I approached, I could see the small cluster of tents and equipment set up in the clearing ahead, a familiar sight. Yet something was wrong. I stopped the truck and cut the engine, the sudden silence that followed feeling unnatural. My heart skipped a beat in the quiet. The world felt almost too still. My eyes scanned the camp as I stepped out, the door slamming softly behind me, a sharp contrast to the heavy silence that surrounded the area. The air, once fresh with the scent of pine, now carried a faint, acrid smell that stung my nostrils. The camp was still, too still, with no sign of life, no movement, no voices, just an unsettling void of activity. I took a few cautious steps toward the center of the clearing, my boots crunching the dry ground beneath me. The scene that unfolded before me wasn't just one of abandonment, it was chaos. Tents were ripped open, their sides torn and flapping in the wind like a flag of distress, fluttering in the cold, late afternoon breeze. Gear was scattered across the ground, backpacks torn open, sleeping bags shredded, and personal items strewn everywhere as though someone had been in a frantic rush. A half-finished meal sat cold on a makeshift table, forgotten, with a few scattered plates and utensils tossed carelessly aside. The remnants of something once normal now left to rot. My stomach churned uneasily. This wasn't a typical case of abandonment or a messy retreat. This was something else, something deliberate, a warning. I crouched down beside one of the torn tents, my hand brushing the frayed edges of the fabric. The material was old, worn by the elements, but the slashes that marred its surface were recent, too fresh. There was a faint, musty smell of mildew, but beneath it, something else. Something heavier. The ground beneath me was disturbed, as though something, or someone, had been dragged through. Deep gouges marred the earth where heavy objects had been pulled, or maybe bodies. I didn't want to think about it. I rose slowly, scanning the area for any other signs of what might have happened. No bodies, no blood, no obvious signs of struggle, just this: wreckage. The camp had been torn apart, left in shambles, as if something or someone had come through and destroyed it, and whoever had been here before me was gone. There was no sign of any rangers or patrol members. It was as though they'd vanished without a trace. My breath quickened and an icy knot tightened in my stomach. My fingers went to the radio at my belt, moving almost instinctively, I brought it to my mouth, keeping my voice steady. "Leah, this is Ethan. I've arrived at the camp. It's abandoned, and it's been torn apart." There was a brief moment of crackling static before Leah's voice broke through, sharp and clear. "What do you mean, torn apart? Are there signs of a struggle? Did you find anyone?" "I don't know," I muttered, my eyes darting from one torn tent to the next. "It's like they left in a hurry. There's no blood, no signs of violence, just chaos. Something's not right here. It's almost as if they were trying to get out fast. But there's no clear reason why." "Stay sharp, Ethan. I'm pulling up the coordinates now and looking at the satellite feed. Check the perimeter and see if you can find anything else. Don't take any chances." "Copy that," I replied, though the unease gnawing at me was hard to shake. Something felt wrong, far more than just the wrecked camp. I had an instinct I couldn't quite place, a gut feeling telling me to be careful, to keep my eyes wide open. I started walking, my boots crunching the dry earth beneath me as I moved around the perimeter of the camp, eyes scanning every corner. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, something hidden just beyond the edges of the clearing. It was a low, unsettling sensation, like the forest itself was holding its breath. And then I saw it. Strange, uneven tracks, deep, ragged indentations in the dirt, leading away from the clearing. They weren't animal tracks. These were too large, too erratic, as though something or someone had been dragged through the dirt. The tracks didn't go far before they disappeared into the thickening forest, winding toward the old mining trail I'd passed earlier on my way in. I hesitated, my pulse quickening. The tracks were fresh, the soil still disturbed, the earth untouched by the usual wear of time. Whoever or whatever had been here hadn't been gone long. "Leah," I said, my voice low as if speaking louder would shatter the silence around me. "I'm following a trail. Something or someone was dragged through here. They're heading toward the old mining trail. I'm going in." "Be careful, Ethan," Leah's voice crackled back, a note of concern undercutting the usual professionalism. "Call if you need backup." I didn't respond immediately. My gaze was already fixed on the dark line of trees ahead, the track disappearing into the shadows of the forest. The forest felt different now, less welcoming. The quiet, the weight of the stillness made everything feel more urgent. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, a creeping awareness that something wasn't right. And with that, I turned, stepping carefully into the forest, the faintest sensation of being watched crawling over my skin. Something was out there, and I was about to find out exactly what. I hesitated only a moment longer before pushing forward. My boots crunched softly on the forest floor, each step carrying me deeper into the trees. The uneven tracks led me through dense underbrush, past twisted, gnarled roots that seemed to reach out like skeletal hands. The air was cooler here, the kind of crisp chill that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. A subtle tension thickened the silence as I moved farther from the camp, and the atmosphere felt oppressive, as if the forest itself was waiting for something or someone to make the next move. The trail had become clearer, the disturbed earth more pronounced. The footprints, if they could even be called that, looked unnatural, as though something heavy had been dragged through the woods, leaving a trail of broken branches and crushed leaves in its wake. Yet, there was no sign of blood or struggle, just absence. A feeling that grew stronger with each step, gnawing at me, clawing at the edges of my mind. Something was very wrong here. Minutes later, the trees began to thin, their towering trunks making way for a small, rocky clearing. And there, in the center of it all, was a cave entrance. I stopped dead in my tracks, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling. The cave's mouth yawned open, dark and foreboding, but it wasn't just the cavern that drew my attention. It was the broken chain lying on the ground just in front of it. The chain was thick and rusted with age, but clearly once strong, the links large enough to hold something, or someone, secure. Now it lay twisted and broken in the dirt, as if snapped with ease, the metal scattered in jagged pieces around the entrance. Nearby, the remnants of a rusted fence lay crumpled and bent, one of the posts completely uprooted, the others bent inward, as though something had forcefully breached the barrier. It wasn't the work of nature. This was too deliberate, too controlled. Someone or something had come through here, and recently. I swallowed hard, unease crawling up my spine. The silence around me felt heavier, more stifling. I stepped closer, the crunch of my boots on the gravel the only sound as I inspected the broken chain. The metal was twisted in a way that suggested brute force, but also something oddly methodical, like the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Whoever or whatever had done this wasn't reckless. They were purposeful. The air seeping from the cave was cool, with a faint metallic stale tang, as if sealed for years. I could almost taste its bitterness, drying my throat. Outside, the wreckage, broken chains, and a bent fence suggested an escape, not random destruction. What had been locked away here, and why? Foreboding gripped me, but curiosity pushed me forward. With a deep breath, I clicked on my flashlight, the beam flickering as I ducked under the jagged overhang. The cave smelled of damp earth, decay, and something ancient. A chill ran down my spine, but I pressed on. The tunnel inside was narrow, winding, and the stone walls seemed to close in on me with each step I took. The faint remnants of old graffiti were scrawled along the jagged walls, hasty marks, symbols I couldn't make sense of. There was a sense of abandonment here, but it wasn't the kind of quiet you'd find in a forgotten place. No, this felt like a place that had been sealed off for a reason, and it had been waiting for someone or something to come back. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. My breath misted in front of me, and the metallic scent grew stronger, thickening with each step I took. The path twisted and turned, and soon I could no longer see the entrance behind me. Only the narrow beam of my flashlight illuminated the path ahead, the stone walls closing in as the tunnel narrowed even more. The echo of my footsteps was the only sound, a rhythmic thudding that bounced off the walls and only served to amplify the isolation. I paused briefly, my hand instinctively tightening around the flashlight. I listened, but all I could hear was the soft echo of my breath, the distant, eerie drip of water somewhere deeper within the cave. The stillness was suffocating, and my mind raced. How much farther was I going to go? Was I really prepared to walk into whatever lay ahead? I took another cautious step forward, my pulse quickening, my senses sharpening. And then ahead I saw it, a faint reflection in the low light of my flashlight. Something metallic. The path opened up into a large chamber, its high ceilings lost in the shadows above. The faint glow of my light bounced off something rusted and heavy, an imposing structure standing in the center of the room. A large iron gate. The edges of the gate were covered in cobwebs, thick and heavy. The dust of years or decades settled on every surface. But what caught my eye wasn't the gate itself. It was the chains that wrapped around it, still thick and intact. Heavy industrial chains gleaming faintly under the weak light. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just an old cave. It felt like a prison. Something had been kept here, something meant to stay hidden away. The chains, the gate, it all pointed to something dark, something locked away for a reason. My eyes scanned the room, my breath catching in my throat as I noticed the strange, uneven markings on the walls. They weren't graffiti this time, they were symbols, older, more unsettling. Some were crudely drawn, others faded as if time had gnawed away at them. I took a step closer, my eyes fixed on the rusted gate. I needed to know what was behind it, but the closer I got, the more uneasy I became. Something in the air felt heavier now. The silence around me deepened, and I could feel a shift, an energy, like something ancient was waking, something that had been locked away for too long. Before I could move closer, a distant, unsettling noise echoed through the chamber. A soft scraping sound, like metal against stone. My heart skipped a beat, and I froze. I froze, the beam of my flashlight trembling in my hand as the scraping sound continued, echoing ominously off the cavern's jagged walls. My heartbeat pulsed in my ears, drowning out everything else. For a fleeting moment I wondered if it was just the wind, perhaps a draft moving through some hidden crevice, dragging loose stones across the ground. But no, this was deliberate. A slow, rhythmic scrape that almost sounded purposeful. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as my breath hitched in my chest. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely rising above the oppressive silence of the cave. The words felt fragile, as if they might break the moment they left my mouth, swallowed by the cavern's vast emptiness. For a long stretch, nothing answered. Then, from deeper within the shadows of the cavern came a faint voice, a whisper so soft and fragile that it almost didn't seem real. "Help. Please. Help me." The word sent a chill down my spine. I felt my throat tighten as I stepped forward, compelled by a force I couldn't understand, but my legs felt leaden, weighed down by an unsettling instinct that screamed at me to turn around, to leave. But the voice, It was so desperate, so human. It dragged me forward despite everything. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing as my flashlight beam danced erratically over the walls. "Who's there?" I called, my voice trying desperately to hold on to some semblance of calm. But the tremor in it betrayed my unease, and I hated myself for it. I had to stay focused. The voice came again, softer this time, but unmistakably the same. "Please, help me." I stopped, my heart hammering against my ribs. It sounded so real, so human. But there was something else. Something off about it, like it had been trapped down here for far too long. Too fragile, too familiar, but somehow wrong. The hairs on my neck stood on end. "Where are you?" I called out, straining my eyes in the dim light, my flashlight darting over the shadows. "Where are you? Can you hear me? Help, please. Help me." The voice repeated, identical in tone and cadence, no variation. The same desperation. A cold dread crawled down my spine. My mind screamed that this was no ordinary plea. It was a mimicry, an echo of something that had been down here far too long. Maybe it wasn't even human. A sudden chilling realization made my breath catch in my throat. This wasn't a person. This was something else. Something that had learned to imitate a voice, to play on the most basic, primal urge to help someone in need. But why? And what was it waiting for in the shadows? I took a slow step back, my instincts screaming at me to leave, to get out of this cursed cave. But before I could turn, the voice came again, louder this time, more urgent. And yet it was still the same. Too identical. Too rehearsed. "Please, help me." The words echoed like a chant now, insistent, growing in intensity. But there was no desperation left in it. Just an unshakable, dissonant repetition. I could feel my pulse in my throat, the panic rising in my chest as I spun on my heel. I turned toward the tunnel entrance, my flashlight wavering in my grasp. Something wasn't right. Suddenly the ground trembled beneath my feet, a deep, guttural rumble vibrating the very walls of the cave. I froze, my heart skipping a beat as a cold sweat trickled down my back. The noise wasn't just from the scraping anymore. It was something else. Something alive. Something huge. My stomach turned over as the rumble grew louder, closer. It was unmistakable now. Something was moving behind me. Something with mass, something unnatural. I didn't hesitate. My legs propelling me forward, I pushed myself into a sprint, the darkness of the cave pressing in around me like a suffocating force. My boots slipped against the jagged floor, and I barely managed to keep my balance as I darted down the narrow tunnel. The scraping sound intensified, merging with the ominous rhythmic thudding that grew steadily louder behind me. It was following me. The noise of it, a slow, deliberate stomp, was gaining ground with terrifying speed. I could hear the earth rumbling beneath me as if it were a giant, something massive chasing after me, the air thickening with each pulse. My breath came in quick gasps as I pushed myself harder, faster, the tunnel seeming to stretch on endlessly, the light from my flashlight casting erratic, dancing shadows on the walls that only deepened the sense of imminent danger. Whatever it was close. I stumbled over an uneven patch of rock, my ankle twisting painfully, but I didn't slow down. I couldn't afford to. Every instinct screamed at me to get out, to run as if my life depended on it, because it did. The heavy pounding of footsteps reverberated behind me, sending shockwaves of terror through my veins. I was almost there. I could see the faint glimmer of light ahead, the entrance, the open air just beyond the cave's grasp. I wasn't going to make it. The thundering noise was deafening now. Each step of whatever creature was chasing me like a massive shockwave against the stone walls. It was closing in, so close I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. My heart thudded so loudly in my chest that I couldn't hear anything but that pulse, like a countdown to my end. Finally, the mouth of the cave came into view. The dim light from the outside world filtered in, offering the smallest sliver of hope. My legs burned, my lungs screamed for air, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I reached the broken fence, my hands trembling as I fumbled for the lock. My pulse hammered in my throat, and I could feel the presence of something monstrous just behind me, right on my heels. The air was thick with a suffocating pressure, and I was sure that if I didn't get the gate locked, whatever was chasing me would tear me apart. Click. The lock turned, but my hands shook too violently, my fingers slipping against the cold, rusted metal. The rumble from behind me was growing louder, louder. and I could hear something breathing, something heavy, strained, and primal. Click. The lock slid into place just as I slammed the gate shut with everything I had. My heart pounded in my chest as I stumbled backward, panting for air. But I didn't waste a second. I turned and ran. I didn't dare look back. The Wrangler was still parked where I left it, the engine idling softly in the quiet dusk. But I didn't stop to appreciate it. I barely registered the familiar sight of the truck as I sprinted toward it, my legs weak, my entire body screaming in exhaustion. My hands fumbled with the door, and I threw myself inside, slamming it shut behind me. The noise was still there, the sound of something huge, powerful, and relentless, still somewhere within the cave. It hadn't shown itself, hadn't fully revealed its shape, but I knew it was there, lurking in the shadows. It hadn't followed me outside. It had stayed behind, but that didn't make it any less real. With a final surge of desperation, I slammed the door shut, cranked the engine, and slammed my foot down on the gas pedal. The Wrangler roared to life, the tires screeching against the gravel as I tore out of the clearing, not looking back. My heart hammered in my chest, the adrenaline coursing through my veins as the truck kicked up dust and gravel. The engine of the Wrangler roared to life as I slammed my foot on the gas, the tires screeching as I tore out of the clearing. My heart raced, a frenzied thump in my chest, but as I sped down the rough trail, I forced myself to focus on the road ahead. I couldn't afford to look back. I couldn't afford to lose control now. White-knuckled on the wheel, cold sweat soaking my shirt, I pushed the Wrangler through the winding forest trail. Trees blurred past, gravel flew under the tires, and the truck shook with every bump, but I couldn't ease off the gas. Something had been chasing me, its footsteps close, the earth trembling beneath my feet. Though the rearview mirror showed only the empty road, I couldn't shake the fear it was still behind me. The cave lingered in my mind, dark, foreboding, broken chains. I had escaped, but why? The doubt gnawed at me. Was it waiting for a mistake? I pressed harder on the gas, desperate to reach the watchtower. As the trees thinned, the clearing came into view. It felt impossibly far, every second an eternity. Finally, I reached the tower, slammed the brakes, and jumped out. My legs were shaky as I stumbled to the locked door, heart pounding. Even in the stillness, I couldn't escape the sense that something was watching, waiting. I forced myself to push through the door and into the tower, the familiar surroundings offering little comfort now. The radio sat on the desk in front of me, its screen dark. The silence of the tower wrapped around me like a shroud, and for the first time it felt suffocating. I shut the door behind me and leaned against it, trying to slow my breathing. The place that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a cage. I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature, whatever it was still out there waiting. But it hadn't followed me. It hadn't chased me beyond the cave. I couldn't let myself feel safe. I knew I hadn't outrun it. It was still out there, lurking in the shadows. I walked to the window, staring into the black forest. The trees stood silent, motionless against the starless sky. The quiet was suffocating, pressing in on me. I turned to the radio, my fingers hovering over the mic. But what could I say? Would Leah believe me? The voice, the chains, the scraping. What kind of monster had I encountered? I locked the door behind me, the click echoing with eerie finality. It felt absurd, knowing a lock wouldn't keep it out, but I needed to feel some semblance of safety. Climbing the stairs to the watchtower's small living quarters, the stifling air and oppressive silence followed me. Sitting on the bed, I ran trembling hands through my hair, trying to calm my racing mind. The cave, the darkness, the chains, the sounds, kept replaying in my head. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't escape, the weight of it crushing me. I glanced toward the radio again, then turned away. I wanted to call Leah. I wanted to tell her everything, but I didn't know how. What could I say? I was terrified, and yet nothing had followed me back. There were no signs of the creature. The woods were as still as they always were. But that didn't ease the unease gnawing at my gut. I pulled the covers up, though I wasn't cold. The air felt heavy with dread, making every breath feel too thick, too slow. I rolled onto my side, staring out the window, trying to focus on the trees in the distance. The view from the tower had always been calming before, the peaceful stretch of forest rolling out beneath the darkening sky, the distant outline of the mountains beyond. But tonight, the sight was anything but peaceful. It was a reminder of what lurked beyond the trees, what had been waiting for me in that cave. I clenched my fists, squeezing my eyes shut, trying to force the thoughts away, but they wouldn't leave. They were like a constant whisper, gnawing at the edges of my mind. A sudden noise broke my thoughts, soft at first, like a faint rustling. I snapped my head toward the window, my heart pounding again. Was it the wind? A trick of the trees? Number. It was a voice. A faint, unmistakable sound that seemed to drift toward me through the still night air. I froze. It wasn't just any voice. Ethan. It was my mom's voice, clear and gentle, like she was standing right outside, calling me. My breath caught in my throat. I sat up straight in bed, my eyes wide, straining to hear more. The sound of my name echoed again, only this time it was softer, more like a whisper. Ethan, help me. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. It couldn't be her. I hadn't heard from her in months. There was no reason for her to be here. I rushed to the window, peering into the still, dark forest. No movement, no shadow, nothing but silence. Had I imagined it? Her voice saying my name had sounded so real, so unmistakable. I tried to shake it off as stress, but then I heard it again. A different voice. My sister's. Ethan, help us. I spun around, heart pounding, and rushed back to the window. My eyes darted through the empty forest, but there was nothing. They couldn't be out there. It wasn't possible. Ethan. My mother's voice again, closer now, just below the window. My hands gripped the sill, trembling. This isn't real. It's not real. I stepped back from the window, my breaths coming faster now. I shook my head again, my thoughts spiraling. Was I losing my mind? Was it the stress, the fear, the exhaustion? But the voices kept coming. Over and over again, like a loop. Soft whispers that felt like they were right on the other side of the walls. I couldn't block them out. Ethan, we're here. Come outside, please. They sounded desperate now, pleading. I pressed my hands to my ears, trying to block out the voices, but they were relentless. Their words seeping into my mind, their tone familiar and comforting. It was as though they were really out there, like they were just waiting for me to open the door, to step outside and follow their calls. They were so close. I rushed toward the door, my hand shaking as I gripped the handle. I couldn't explain it. My heart ached, my throat tight. I wanted to see them. I wanted to make sure they were all right. But as I opened the door, the cool night air hit me and the voices stopped. Gone. There was nothing. I stood on the threshold, breathing hard, looking out into the pitch-black emptiness. The same emptiness that had been there moments before. The wind stirred the trees gently, but there was no sign of anyone. No trace of them. Not even a footprint in the dirt. A cold chill swept through me. My throat tightened, and I closed the door quickly, locking it behind me. My mind was spinning. I couldn't make sense of it. What had just happened? The silence in the tower felt deafening now. No more voices, no more whispers. Just the hum of my own breath, ragged and uncertain. I staggered back from the door, my mind reeling from the eerie silence that followed the voices. My pulse was racing, the fear crawling under my skin like 1,000 insects, buzzing and scratching. My hands were clammy, slick with sweat as I leaned against the wall, trying to steady my breath. It wasn't possible. None of it made sense. How could I hear their voices? I hadn't seen my mother or sister in years. They couldn't be here. They couldn't be out there. My legs gave out beneath me and I collapsed onto the floor, my body trembling uncontrollably. My chest felt tight, as if something were squeezing the air from my lungs. My vision blurred and I tried to focus, to make sense of everything. But the room spun around me. The voices had stopped, but the feeling of being watched remained, like a constant pressure on my chest, suffocating and unyielding. I took shallow breaths, trying to ground myself, but it wasn't enough. The fear, the exhaustion, the overwhelming sense of dread, everything caught up with me all at once. My eyelids fluttered, heavy, and despite my best efforts to fight it, my body betrayed me. My last thought before everything went black was a quiet whisper, the memory of my mother's voice still echoing faintly in my mind. Help us. When I woke, the tower was still silent, the morning light creeping through the small window, casting a pale glow across the floor. I sat up quickly, the remnants of the dream, or whatever it was, lingering like a fog in my mind. My head was pounding, my body stiff from the cold. My throat was dry, and a dull ache settled deep in my bones. I glanced around the room, still disoriented, trying to shake off the remnants of the nightmare. It had felt so real. But the tower was quiet, still, empty. I had to focus. I had to do something. I couldn't stay here anymore. The weight of the night's events hung on me like an anchor. I staggered to my feet, swaying slightly as I moved to the small desk by the window. The radio was there, silent and cold, waiting for me. My hands were still trembling, but I reached for it anyway. My fingers felt numb as I grabbed the mic, pressing it to my lips with a desperation I couldn't hide. Leah. My voice cracked, hoarse from the fear and exhaustion. I cleared my throat and tried again. Leah, this is Ethan. I need to call for search and rescue. There was a brief pause on the other end, the static crackling in response. Then Leah's voice, sharp and professional, came through the speaker. Ethan? What's going on? You sound... What happened? I closed my eyes, trying to gather my thoughts, trying to piece together the events of the last few hours. The fear and confusion were still too fresh, still too real. My pulse quickened, but I had to explain. I had to get help. I can't explain it, Leah. I don't know what happened, but I need help. There's something out there. Something in the cave, the camp. There was no one there, just destruction and the voices, Leah. I heard them. I heard my mom and my sister. They called to me. But they're not here. They can't be. I don't know what's going on, but I need... My words faltered as the weight of everything crashed down on me again. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breath. Leah's voice broke the tension, calm but firm. Ethan, just breathe. I'm pulling up your coordinates. Stay in the tower. Search and rescue are on their way. I clutched the mic, my hands shaking. Okay, please hurry. After a pause, her voice returned, more reassuring. We're on our way, Ethan. You're not alone. I set the mic down, my legs weak as I sank onto the bed. Dawn's first light filtered through the trees, bringing a faint sense of relief. Help was coming, but the fear clung to me, the cave and voices replaying in my mind. Something still felt off, like I was being watched. I leaned back against the cold wall, closing my eyes, and waited. The morning air outside was heavy with anticipation, the horizon stretching wide and silent. Leah had arrived with the search and rescue team a few hours after our conversation. They'd come prepared, their vehicles parked in a loose formation just beyond the tower. The crew was methodical, focused, but I couldn't shake the lingering dread that followed me like a shadow. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and I couldn't explain it. But they were here now, and they trusted me to lead them to the cave. I felt the weight of the team's eyes on me as I gathered my gear. There were 6 of us, Leah, a few experienced rescuers, and me. Everyone knew their role, but my role felt heavier than I'd expected. I wasn't just leading them to a location. I was leading them into a nightmare I barely understood myself. Ready? Leah asked, her voice steady but with a hint of concern as she caught my eye. Yeah, let's go, I replied, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. I led the way back through the forest, my senses sharp but on edge. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their shadows deep and dark. The path was familiar, but it felt different now, darker, heavier with each step. I hadn't wanted to come back here, but there was no choice. The voices, the wrecked camp, the thing in the cave, it was all too real. And now I had to face it. As we approached the clearing, I felt my stomach drop. The area around the cave felt untouched. The fence I'd hurriedly locked still in place, but something was off. The lock was gone. I stopped dead in my tracks, my breath catching in my throat. What's wrong? Leah's voice cut through the tension, her brow furrowing as she caught up to me. She followed my gaze, her eyes narrowing as she saw the state of the broken chain, now completely gone. I swallowed, fear crawling up my spine. I locked it. I swear I locked it. But there was no time to dwell on that. The team began to fan out, checking the perimeter while Leah and I approached the cave entrance. The darkness seemed to swallow the light from our flashlights, and a strange heaviness pressed down on me as I stepped closer. Stay sharp, Leah ordered, her voice low and serious. We don't know what we're dealing with here. The team moved silently, their footsteps muffled by the dense undergrowth. The smell of decay and old earth hit me again, stronger this time. I could feel the weight of the past hours hanging over me, the dread gnawing at my gut. I looked at the entrance of the cave, the jagged rock surrounding it like the mouth of a beast ready to swallow us whole. We moved inside, the air growing colder with each step. The flashlight beams caught the same graffiti on the walls, now faded and distant. the memories of whoever had been here long before us. The floor was still damp and uneven, the strange metallic smell in the air even stronger now. And then, we found them. The first body was lying in the middle of the cavern floor, an unsettling stillness surrounding it. The other two were scattered nearby. The bodies were lifeless, pale, and cold to the touch, but there was something more disturbing about them. They weren't just dead, they had been moved, torn apart in places, their limbs twisted unnaturally, their clothes shredded. And then we saw the fourth body. It was a few feet from the others. The head had been removed, sliced off cleanly as if with a blade. No blood spilled, just clean. The body itself was intact, lying unnaturally still, but the severed head wasn't anywhere to be found. A chill ran down my spine, and I had to fight the urge to turn and run. This wasn't just some animal attack or a botched camp. This was something deliberate. Someone or something had done this. I forced myself to breathe, trying to calm my racing pulse. "These were the camp's occupants," I said, my voice barely a whisper. They were here. Something killed them, but..." I stopped, my throat tightening. "Who did this? What did this?" Leah knelt beside the headless body, her expression unreadable. "We'll need to call for an extraction. This is beyond us." The team documented the scene, but my mind reeled. The voices mimicking my loved ones felt like a distant dream, yet I couldn't shake their reality. Hours in the cave yielded no answers. No struggle, no weapons, no tracks. The remains were methodically placed, chilling in their grotesque stillness. The culprit was never found. The investigation closed without explanation. The voices stopped, and the creature remained hidden, as though it had always been there, waiting. Even after 10 years, I can't escape the feeling of being watched. I still patrol the woods, climb the tower, and try to forget. But some nights, when the wind howls just right, I hear whispers. Faint, familiar, but never anyone I know. I've never seen it again, yet I know it's still out there, lurking in the dark, waiting for the next unwary soul. Sometimes, alone in the tower, the voices return, soft and low, just beyond the wind. But no one's ever there. Before I tell you my story, let me introduce you to myself and familiarize you with the situation I am in. You can call me Ellie. I'm not going to give you my real name for privacy reasons. I live in a small, not-so-well-known town in Russia, where I lived all of my life up to this point. I won't mention town by name for privacy reasons also, and because I don't want my town to become some sort of paranormal tourist trap. I live in an apartment building with my pet cat. Throughout my life, I experienced many weird things, and I thought I could share them with you and maybe tell you about my life in general. This feels like a perfect place to tell my stories. I'm warning you, these tales are true, and I am lucky that I am still here to tell them. If people will find interest in my tales, I would be happy to share more. Let's start off with explaining where I live. Like I said before, I live in an apartment complex, a common place for people to live in Russia. I live in a very quiet neighborhood, a very comfy place to live in, where there is everything very close by. There's 3 different stores, a pizza restaurant, a mall very close by, and I also live next to a hospital. I own a 1-room apartment. I have a kitchen, a room I sleep in, and a bathroom. I live on 7th floor, and my building has only 9 floors, so I am living pretty high up. Why do I tell you this? Because recently something happened to me that I could not find a logical explanation for, even if I try. Everything started several days ago. It was approximately 11 p.m. and I was about to go to bed, but I had to go drink water and check if I have food for breakfast. That's when I noticed a strange person standing across the road from my house from my kitchen window. He didn't move an inch, and despite him standing under a street light, I couldn't make out his features. It's not common for folks to walk around during such hours. Hell, I even saw food delivery workers riding on their bikes at such hours, but it's still very late. The street was empty, and he didn't move an inch. I didn't think much of it and just closed the door to my kitchen and went to bed. The next day, same thing happened. That man came back again, same place, same time. I assumed it was a different man, but he does have similar shape to the man from before. I tried to ignore him, thinking maybe it's a coincidence. But then it happened again and again. I started to wonder if he was looking at my window. I just felt strange feeling that I was being watched. I was already thinking of calling the police and reporting a stalker, but what if that man is not even watching me? What if he is watching someone else? How do I even know if he is even watching me? Maybe he goes here to smoke or watch the stars. I decided to stay calm and think rationally. After all, I don't know the guy, and assuming that he may be some sort of stalker would be rude. But everything changed when I couldn't fall asleep. I drank too much water before bed and I had to take a leak, so I went to the bathroom to do all my business. After I was done, I looked at my kitchen. It was dark out and street's lights were off. I forgot to close the kitchen door. I have a bad memory and I have to close the kitchen because my cat would want to go there during the night and would start whining, waking me up in the process. So I went to the kitchen, but I foolishly decided to look at my window out of sheer curiosity. And that's when I saw him again. The man was still standing there. The time was like 1 a.m. Why was he still there? I tried to carefully look at the window, crouching down a little so he won't see me. He stood there motionless. I could see him barely. I felt chill run down my spine. I decided that maybe it was time to do something, so I was about to call the police, but I accidentally clicked on the flashlight option. I turned it off, hoping he won't realize I'm still awake. My heart jumped as I began to get up. He was still standing there, but I felt like something changed about him. I couldn't point it out at first until I saw it. His knees were bending. He moved. Should I be scared? Should I run? My first instinct was to back away, until he finally made his move. He jumped across the road, and with a loud thud of my window, he appeared before me. That was no ordinary man. He jumped from there to here like it was nothing. He was holding onto my window. You know when frogs stick themselves to the window, he was doing that. His face was so close to the window, he looked like he was trying to go through the glass. And his face, he was smiling. His dark eyes were focused on me. His teeth were long, and his face was pale and full of wrinkles. He wore a black winter coat with a hood on. I finally understood what he was wearing. I didn't know what to do. I slowly backed away, grabbing my knife in case it somehow manages to break in. That's when the worst thing happened. He started to slap my window repeatedly while screaming and laughing into it like a banshee. I jumped and dropped the knife. Fighting this thing wouldn't be worth it anyway. I grabbed my cat, shoes, and keys. I only wore a short and boxers, but I ain't got time for dressing up. I could hear the sound of glass breaking slowly before I could hear the shatter just as I closed the door. I locked my door up tight. Thankfully, I had 2 locks, one of which could only be locked with a key from outside. I ran out of the door screaming bloody murder. I grabbed my phone and called for the police. I told them that someone broke into my house. I did not mention the fact that intruder leaped like a grasshopper into my apartment. I had to hide somewhere, so the best solution in my eyes was to hide inside an elevator. I was afraid of him trying to break through one of the windows in between the floors next to garbage disposal. I kept waiting until suddenly the elevator started moving to the first floor. Thankfully, it was just the police arriving to my complex. I explained that someone climbed into my window somehow and got into my apartment. Despite how weird it sounded, they believed me and told me to wait somewhere safe. One of my neighbors on the lower floor heard my screech and decided to help me hide in her apartment. An hour later, and police reported that the culprit didn't steal anything, but he did make a mess in my apartment. Kitchen window was shattered completely. I drew them a sketch of the person. I told them that I saw that man standing outside across the street from my house for a while. They promised me that they will find a color pit as soon as possible, recommending me that I should stay at my relative's place or a place of my close friends. I used to stay the night at my grandma's place, so I asked them to drive me there so I won't have to get on taxi and so I feel a little safer. That night I slept at my grandma's place, and I decided to stay with her for a few days while police investigated the scene. I left my computer in my house, but police eventually brought it to me because I asked them. They did not identify the color pit, but fortunately, that damn grasshopper left fingerprints on my window, at least what was left of it. So now they have my sketch, my account, and proof that he actually was real and I did not make it up. Hopefully they managed to find him. Although I doubt it, because it can't be a normal person. Currently, I am still staying at my grandma's place, a bit nervous of going back to my house after the incident. I feel a lot safer with my grandparents. They were worried about me, but I thankfully got out without any injuries. I might tell you more about them in the future, if you believe me at least. I came back to my house after intruder broke into my house one night. Thankfully, I got some money for the new window. Police said that they are still investigating the case and they will find the color pit, but something about their faces. It made me feel like something is wrong. They looked puzzled, maybe even confused. Of course, I would understand if they actually saw the things unfold that night, but I haven't told them that the man leaped to my window like a frog. I was at least happy that I changed my window. It was not really pricey, and it's security measures. So person who installed the window told me I can pay half the price, because he felt bad for my situation. So now I am in my house again. Of course, it felt unusual to come back after what just happened, and I gotta admit, I still feel paranoid about the whole thing. That man definitely made me feel like a character from a slasher movie. Luckily, he did not show up again. How do I know this? Well, I decided to ask one of my neighbors on first floor to give me one of his cameras. I will explain later why he has them, but he was happy to give them to me and even helped me install one of them outside my window. So I was able to watch the footage without leaving the comfort of my bed and not looking outside. But if he does show up again, I would be ready, I think. But before we get to the story, I want to ask you something. How often do you take out the trash? How often do you hoard the trash bags? Do you ever look at the full bag of trash and go, I will throw it away later, and just forget about it until you have 5 of them? Well, I am the kind of person who does that. Because I'm mostly busy all day, I sometimes feel too tired to do anything, and I end up procrastinating and leaving things undone. I want to tell you a story that happened way before the incident with the intruder, related to the subject. Let's start off with talking about my place and where I live. Most of the Russian folks live in apartment complexes that are usually connected together like a big wall. But my house is a singular building. We call these candles. It is 9 stories tall, and each floor has at least 6 apartments, maybe. I live on 7th floor, just a reminder. I lived here with my mom for over 7 to 8 years, until she moved out to another city for work-related reasons recently, leaving me alone to take care of the apartment. The building itself is definitely old. It even has different drawings and writing on it left by people who lived before me, outside and inside, mind you. And on every 2nd floor we have a garbage chute. These are installed in every single apartment building. We started to use the chute more often, because neighbors thought that leaving garbage outside the building may not be a good idea. Plus, we want the building to look appealing. If there's trash outside the house, people will think druggies and alcoholics live here. Not good people, basically. I found out about this the hard way, when I left an old coat next to my house, thinking maybe someone can take it for themselves. After all, I found a whole book of Lord of the Rings in perfect condition near my house, along with a bag of old books. But as it turns out, I was not supposed to do that, and I got called on the intercom and told to throw it away into the garbage chute. My mom scolded me for what I did. That's why my neighbor had these cameras, because he installed 2 outside the house, and 1 outside his apartment door pointed at the 1st floor chute, because it gets stuffed all the time. Our garbage chute is old and narrow, and sometimes trash bags don't want to fall down the pipe properly, leaving them stuck inside the chute. So the best solution I found for these situations is beating the bag with a broom a few times till it falls down the pipe. Also, like I said before, someone keeps stuffing bags into the 1st floor chute, so we have to dig them out so all the trash falls right into the bin. After a while, I started to wonder if it is possible to actually fall down the chute into the basement floor of the house. Yeah, I am weird. But you would probably wonder same thing out of sheer curiosity. Of course, I was not planning to do that. I would probably die trying. But I was still curious about what happens inside. So, one day, while throwing away my garbage, I wanted to look inside the chute. Because I was on the top floor and my chute was the last one, so don't worry, I wouldn't get hit in the head with a bag of God knows what from above. I managed to take a look inside. Honestly, the smell was terrible. Of course it would be. So much trash and spoiled food gets thrown here. But that's not what made me feel amused. It was something else. I saw a pale-looking object deep in the chute. I thought maybe someone's bag got stuck. But then I tried to look at it closer, the best I can at least. Then I noticed strange features. Eyes, mouth, nose, a face. It was a face. I couldn't believe my eyes. I do not drink, smoke, or do drugs, so it's impossible for me to have these kinds of hallucinations. I was ready to take a photo, but then I thought that maybe it's just my imagination or a case of pareidolia. I threw my bags into the chute and left as I heard my bags falling to the bottom, but not hitting the bin. Usually I can hear the echo of the bag falling into the bin, but this time I didn't. Guess the first chute was stuffed again. On the next day I forgot about it, because I got too focused on building a deck for my Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I made so many Steam accounts just to build all the decks I want to play. As I went to the kitchen, I realized that I forgot to throw away a pizza box that was sitting on my table for a few days now. Of course, I can always leave it here till I eventually throw it away, but I thought, get your lazy ass to the chute. It takes a second. So I folded the box and went to the chute. As I opened the chute door, my mind reminded me of the face. I was still curious of what I saw, so I decided that maybe I can look again just once. I looked into the chute and my eyes widened. The thing was still there, and it got closer. Just a little, but I could see it a little better. My heart jumped a little. I tried to think rationally, but what kind of explanation do I come up with to convince myself that this is not a literal human face? As I looked at it, I started to realize that face appeared to be of a woman, a smiling woman. Her face was upside down and she stared right into my soul. She was not too close to me, but the fact that it even got close scared me a little. Then a thought came into my head. Maybe I just didn't realize how close it was, and it may just be a bag with a magazine maybe. A magazine with a woman's face on the cover. I decided to calm down and just throw the pizza box in. And again, it reached the bottom, but not the bin, and on the next day, things took a turn. I was cleaning my house from all the trash and things that laid around the house that I forgot to throw away. Like some old bread in the cupboard, bottles, old electricity papers. I had a whole bag of tars ready to be thrown away. The idea of going to the chute again made me feel uneasy after I saw the face. As I went to the chute, I decided to just throw it away, not even look inside the chute. I heard the sound my bag not falling into the bin once again, and I started to get infuriated. So I grabbed my broom and went to first floor to clean up the mess, because this was getting ridiculous. And if they won't clean it, I will. When I got to the first floor, the chute was clean. It was not stuffed, so that meant that it was somewhere on one of the top floors. As far as I remember, it didn't go too far, so it must be on 5th floor, which was not odd since bags can get stuck anywhere. I went to 5th floor, and just as I thought, something was definitely inside. I assumed it was some bag of old clothes that got stuck inside, or some old stinky blanket because the smell coming from it was horrible. I grabbed my broom and started pounding whatever was inside, thinking I can get it into a position where it would smoothly slide down the pipe into the bin. I heard the sound of something breaking or cracking, like twigs snapping, or maybe even bones. Something felt off. Suddenly, something grabbed my broom and started pulling it. A hand, a pale feminine hand, held the broom by its handle. It was definitely not a blanket, I thought, and that's when I saw it once again. The same face that stared at me from the chute, smiling once again at me. Its face peeking from the hole, its eyes red with anger. I watched as it tried to pull the broom. I kept pulling with all my might. I may look like a twig, but I went to boxing lessons, so I have some meat on my bones. The thing was slowly crawling out of the chute. I had to do something. Something snapped in my head, and with all my rage and strength, I pulled the broom out and hit her face with the end of the handle. She kept smiling like she didn't even mind that I was basically ready to turn her face into a bloody red rose. I managed to get her deep back into the pipe, and I hit her the final time with the broom into her neck, causing her to fall. I heard the sound of her falling right into the bin. I ran out of there back to my floor. A neighbor of mine was on his way to throw out the trash. He asked me what happened. I didn't want to tell him about the lady. I just told him that I saw a rat jump out of the chute and went back to my place. I didn't have any blood on me. It's almost like she never had any to begin with. I locked the door behind me and went to the bathroom to wash my clothes and broom from the stench. My dog hid under the bed from my god-awful smell. To be fair, I don't blame her. After what happened, I just had to lie down and distract myself with something. So for the rest of the day, I just played cards. Apparently, after I told the neighbor about rats, exterminators came for a visit. The line about the rat was not exactly a lie. We did have few rats running around near our house. And along with few actual rats, the cleaning lady discovered the body in the bin under a few other bags of trash. Police came to investigate the case. Turned out that one of our residents disappeared recently, and apparently they found her corpse in the bin. They asked everyone if they knew the woman, even asked me. But I told them I didn't know her, but I did feel an unbearable smell coming from the garbage chute. Eventually, they found the culprit, the husband of the woman who lived on the 5th floor with her. He tried to fight and run away from house as soon as he got caught, but resistance was futile. I watched as he was getting taken away. Sad sight to behold. I only found out what actually happened in a newspaper I got in the mailbox. We get these sometimes. I usually throw them away, but this time I got curious. The article talked about a murder of the man's wife, and how he revealed to the police that he tried to throw her body into the pipe. He put her in a bag and threw her down the pipe 5 days ago. As far as I remember, 5 days ago the pipe was filled with trash, so nothing could go down the pipe to the bin. Want to hear something even more strange? When they got rid of all the trash in the first floor chute, they found not only all of my bags and my pizza box too, but also a huge torn bag that didn't have anything inside. You know the song, it's catchy, it stays in your head all day. And that part specifically is creepy. Come on, I know some of you agree. It's the holiday season and life is stressful. Work is always busy, there's always traffic, and getting all the gifts together to wrap is always a pain. But it's all worth it every single time I see that smile and joy on my daughter's face. She's 5 now, but ever since she got the concept of Christmas, it's her favorite time of the year. This year is no different. Since Thanksgiving, she has had her Christmas list ready and is adding things daily. As the days wore on, more and more decorations came out. Inflatables and lights in front of the house, stockings and the Christmas tree inside of the house. To our family, this truly is the best time of the year. One of my daughter's favorite thing to do was to go see Santa at the mall. She would bring her list, and before the annual picture, she would read off everything she wanted. This year was no different. List in hand, my daughter went up to Santa, sat on his lap, and then Santa asked that magical question. "Were you a good girl this year?" "Yes, I sure was, Santa. I ate all my veggies, I brushed my teeth, and I did all my homework." "Ho, ho, ho. Good job. Santa will make sure you get everything you ask for." After a smile and big hug, my daughter ran over to me, happy to tell me about the news from Santa. When we got home, my daughter went on the hunt for my wife to tell her about what Santa had said. She couldn't hold back the excitement. The last couple of years, I had the idea to slowly add more presents under the tree as Christmas got closer in order to build up the excitement. I explained to my daughter that because Santa had to visit all the little boys and girls all over the world, he had to come back a few times to drop more presents off. I obviously would put the presents under the tree while she slept, and each morning when she woke up, she would try to see what new presents were under the tree. By the time Christmas came, the living room was filled with presents. On the night I laid out the first round of presents, I was exhausted. Once I placed out a few, I decided to call it a night and headed up the stairs to the bedroom. While laying in bed, I was drifting off to sleep when I heard a creak on the stairs, followed by the sound of something falling. I quickly stood up and headed for the door. I opened the door, and to my surprise, my daughter was at the top step with a flashlight in hand. "Honey, what are you doing?" "I'm trying to see him, Daddy. I'm trying to see Santa." "Oh, geez, I don't think you're going to see him, darling. He drops the presents off before anyone can see." "Oh, no, Daddy, I'm going to catch him. You'll see." I laughed and scooped her up to bring her back to her bedroom. I tucked her in and walked back to my bedroom, laughing to myself along the way at how funny she is. The next day was another exhausting day of work with some family time mixed in once I got home. Once we put our daughter down to sleep, my second job began. More presents were added under the tree. This time, as I was making my way back up the stairs, I saw my daughter's bedroom door crack open ever so slightly. I saw her little feet at the base of the door. I just shook my head with a slight chuckle. "Hey, you," I whispered. "Time to get to bed. I just checked and Santa isn't here." "Oh, come on, Dad. I know he is coming." "Bed, please." And with that, she closed her door and I heard her shuffling back to bed. The next couple of days were rinse and repeat. Work, dinner, bedtime, presents. Without fail, every night I heard my daughter's door open and footsteps in the hallway. My wife had convinced me to let it play out. "Just let her do it. She is having fun. I'm sure she will go to sleep once she doesn't see anything." "You're right. She will just be excited to see more gifts under the tree." It was now Christmas Eve, and the tree was almost fully surrounded by presents at least a foot high. After my nightly routine, I peeked into my daughter's room to make sure she was sound asleep, and she was. I made my way back to my room and climbed in bed. I was waiting to hear her door and footsteps in the hallway like every night, but this time all I heard was the sound of my wife snoring. I thought maybe she finally realized she wasn't going to catch Santa. To be honest, it made me a little sad. I thought it was adorable, and it really showed how innocent she was. The night went on, and I didn't hear a peep from her room. When she woke up, I had breakfast made. "No luck with Santa last night?" She had a huge smile on her face. "Oh, I saw him, Daddy. I saw Santa." I was curious to where this was going, so I played along. "Oh, did you now?" "I sure did. He came to my room and asked if I was a good little girl this year." "Well, that was kind of creepy. I told him I was, and he told me that if I wanted to get even more presents that I should stay in bed and stop trying to catch him. Oh, okay, honey, that's good. All right, that is extremely strange. What an odd imagination my daughter had, I thought. Maybe she saw me putting the gifts under the tree and didn't want to ruin the magic of Christmas, so she made up this wacky story. That has to be it. I went to work that day, and the image of Santa in my daughter's room stayed with me. By the time I got home, I was pooped. I only had a few more presents to put out, and Christmas was tomorrow. I figured once my daughter went to sleep, I would put out the last presents, set up a plate with cookies and milk, and then take my exhausted self to bed. To say I knocked out was an understatement. The long days have caught up to me, and they were starting to take a toll. It was going to be all over soon and well worth it. My daughter came sprinting in our room on Christmas morning. "Mommy, Daddy, wake up, it's Christmas." I'm up, I shouted. She ran down the stairs, and we followed close behind. She was ecstatic and could not wait to open her presents. I told her she could start with whatever present she wanted. Before I could finish the sentence, she was already ripping wrapping paper off the biggest one. In all the excitement, I looked around the room and noticed that the cookies that I had placed out were all gone, and the glass of milk was empty but toppled over. I thought to myself that my wife had gone to extra mile to make it more believable. "Nice touch, babe." "Huh? What do you mean?" "The cookies and the milk. She is definitely going to think Santa devoured that." I didn't do anything," she said with a nervous laugh. "I figured that was you, along with these boot prints that you left on the floor." I wasn't wearing boots. I was too tired last night to do any of the extra stuff. Did our daughter eat the cookies? I mean, maybe, but that wouldn't explain the boot prints. That's when I saw it. A gift that didn't look familiar. A gift that I hadn't put under the tree. Eloquently wrapped with a big bow and tag on it. I walked over to it and looked at the tag. The tag read, "To the good little girl." What the hell is this? I sat down on the floor and began to unwrap it. "Hey, Daddy, that's not yours," my daughter yelled. I continued to unwrap it. I lifted the lid of the box. Inside there were pictures. Dozens and dozens of pictures. Pictures of us sleeping, of my daughter sleeping. Pictures of us leaving the house. What the fuck is this? Pictures of us at the mall, my daughter sitting on Santa's lap. There was a note at the bottom of the box. "Thank you for being such a good girl. I've been watching you to make sure you weren't lying. I hope you like the presents I left. Love, Santa." I stood up, pictures falling all over the floor. I heard my daughter laugh with excitement. "Oh, I love it, Daddy. This is my favorite teddy bear ever. It even sings a song." My daughter gave the bear a squeeze. "He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake." My name is Emma, and I don't even know how to start this. If this post makes it out there, I need you to believe me. I need someone to believe me. I'm writing this from the supply closet in the basement of Ridgeview Ski Resort. Don't try to look it up. Please don't make the same mistake as I. God, I'm stupid. I don't even know why I stayed after day one, perhaps because of the good pay. Here's how it all started. 2 weeks ago, I got a job at this ski resort. The pay was good, and I thought it would be a fun, picturesque way to spend the winter surrounded by snow-covered mountains and fresh air. The idea of being in a cozy lodge, watching the snow fall outside while the guests enjoyed their stay, seemed perfect. It was the kind of job you think about when you're trying to escape the grind of city life, and everything about it felt like a dream. My first day was typical. I met the team, got my uniform, went through the usual onboarding stuff. The whole thing felt like a normal first day at a new job, nothing unusual, nothing out of the ordinary. But that all changed at the end of the day. Pete, the manager, a wiry guy with a sharp, calculating gaze, called me into his office just before I was about to leave. He's one of those people who gives off a strange vibe, the kind of person who makes you feel like you're always being watched. He handed me a laminated sheet of paper without saying a word, his fingers stiff and cold as he passed it over. I noticed his eyes, dark and unreadable, never left mine. "These are the rules," he said, his voice flat, almost too serious. "Follow them to the letter or you won't last here." At first I thought it was some kind of weird hazing, a test to see if I was taking the job seriously. It's not unusual for a new employee to be given a set of strange instructions or odd tasks. But something in Pete's tone made me pause. He wasn't joking. There was no warmth in his words, no sign of humor in his eyes. It felt wrong, like he was telling me something I wasn't supposed to hear. I took the paper from him, my fingers brushing against the cold laminate, trying to brush it off. "Rules are no problem," I said, forcing a smile, hoping to lighten the mood. But Pete didn't smile. His eyes remained cold, piercing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was somehow being warned about something I had no understanding of yet. As I walked away, holding that sheet of paper, I couldn't help but glance at it. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the moment everything started to change. Something told me that I should have paid more attention to those rules. The list looked like this: do not whistle while working, especially after sunset. If you see a child alone on the slopes, do not approach them. Report it immediately and leave the area. Never turn off the lights in the staff lodge, even if you're the last one there. If you hear music coming from an empty cabin, do not investigate. Notify Pete immediately. Do not use the ski lift alone after 9 p.m. If you find yourself on it, do not look down. Avoid mirrors in the staff bathrooms after midnight. If a guest asks you for directions to the old lodge, pretend you didn't hear them and walk away. Do not take photos of the forest or the mountain at dusk. If you find a pair of skis standing upright in the snow with no one around, leave the area as quickly as possible. Never, under any circumstances, speak about the white shadow to anyone. The first few days were uneventful. I stayed inside after sunset, ignored any strange noises, and avoided the mirrors in the staff lodge after midnight. It was easy enough to follow the rules, until it wasn't. The first rule I broke was number 1. It was my third night, and I was clearing snow off the lodge steps while humming absent-mindedly. The cold bit at my fingers and my breath puffed in front of me in tiny clouds. Without realizing it, I started to whistle a tune, something cheerful to distract me from the freezing air. It wasn't until the third or fourth note that I noticed the change. The wind stopped. Not just slowed or died down, but stopped. The air became unnaturally still, and it felt like the entire mountain was holding its breath. My own whistle cut off abruptly as I looked around, heart pounding. That's when I heard it. A low, guttural whistle echoed back, coming from somewhere deep in the forest. It wasn't a mimic of my tune, it was jagged and wrong, like the sound was being dragged out of something that wasn't meant to whistle. I froze. My breath caught in my chest as the sound grew louder, closer. The trees at the edge of the forest seemed darker now, their branches twisting unnaturally, reaching toward me. Then something moved. A shadow, tall and spindly, darting between the trunks too fast for me to make out. My legs felt like lead, but I forced myself to move, stumbling back up the steps and into the lodge. I slammed the door behind me and locked it, leaning against it as I tried to catch my breath. Inside, the lodge was silent. Too silent. The usual creaks and groans of the old building were absent, and I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I peeked out the window, my breath fogging the glass. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure standing at the edge of the tree line, but when I blinked, it was gone. The rest of the night, I stayed huddled by the fireplace, every light in the lodge turned on, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, circling just out of sight. The windows, they felt like eyes, and every so often I'd catch a flicker of movement in the corner of my vision. Too fast to be human, too deliberate to be the wind. A few days later, I was working the western slopes when I spotted something unusual. It was one of those rare, eerily silent moments on the mountain. The wind had died down, and even the usual rustle of trees was absent, as if the whole area was holding its breath. That's when I saw her. A small child sitting alone on the side of the slope, knees drawn up to her chest. Her old-fashioned ski outfit stood out immediately. It looked like something out of a vintage photograph, the kind you'd see in the lodge's historical display cases. The colors were faded, the fabric oddly pristine, as though untouched by time or snow. She didn't seem cold, despite the chill in the air. Her pale face was tilted down, but her eyes, something about them, was wrong. They weren't crying or red from the cold. No, they seemed dull, almost lifeless, but at the same time, alert, watching. It's hard to explain, but they made my skin crawl. She wasn't moving, just sitting there, perfectly still, like she was waiting for something or someone. Instinctively, I almost called out to her. My first thought was that she might be lost or hurt, but as I opened my mouth, a cold dread settled over me, freezing the words in my throat. My gut twisted as rule number 2 flashed in my mind. Don't engage with anyone who shouldn't be there. I fumbled for my radio, my hands shaking slightly as I adjusted the dial. Pete. My voice came out quieter than I intended. There's a kid on the western slope sitting by herself. Looks off. Old gear, pale face. What do I do? Pete's response was immediate and sharp. Leave. Right now, don't look at her, don't talk to her, just go. The urgency in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. Without another word, I turned my skis downhill and started gliding away as fast as I could without losing control. Every nerve in my body screamed to look back, to confirm she was still there, or gone. But I didn't. I focused on the path ahead, each movement deliberate, keeping my breathing steady despite the pounding of my heart. And yet I could feel her. That cold, intense gaze boring into my back like icy needles. It was as if her eyes were tethered to me, tracking my every move. My legs burned as I pushed myself harder, willing the slope to stretch further, faster to get away from whatever I'd just seen. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I reached the base of the slope and dared to glance over my shoulder. The spot where she'd been was empty. No sign of the child, no disturbed snow, no tracks leading away. Just undisturbed white, pristine, and eerily quiet. I stood there for a moment, catching my breath, the radio still clutched in my hand. Pete, I said, my voice trembling slightly. She's gone. There was a long pause before Pete responded. When he did, his voice was low and steady, but there was an edge to it. Good. Stick to the main trails for the rest of your shift. And remember the rules. Always. The next one I broke was number 3. It was late and I'd been the last one in the staff lodge again. Exhausted, I flipped off the lights as I left, forgetting the rule entirely. For a moment, the darkness was absolute, heavy like a physical presence pressing against me. Then I felt it, a weight like something was standing inches behind me. My breath hitched and a chill crawled up my spine, so sharp and sudden it almost stole my balance. I froze, every instinct screaming at me to run, but my body wouldn't move. My ears strained against the silence, desperate to catch a sound, any sound, but there was nothing. The stillness was deafening, amplifying the pounding of my heart. Slowly I forced my legs to move, bolting for the exit as panic clawed at the edges of my mind. My fingers fumbled with the keys, slippery with sweat despite the cold. My hands were trembling so badly it took 3 tries to get the key into the lock. As soon as I got outside, the lights inside flickered back on by themselves. The sudden brightness poured through the lodge's windows, throwing everything inside into sharp relief. At first glance it seemed normal, empty still, but as my gaze lingered I noticed something. A shadow, impossibly long and spindly, seemed to ripple against the far wall before it slipped out of sight into the deeper darkness. I staggered back, the door swinging shut behind me with a dull thud. My breath came in shallow gasps as I turned and walked quickly, almost stumbling toward my car. I didn't stop moving until I was halfway across the lot, where I finally dared to glance back. The lodge stood there, silent and still, its light steady as though nothing had happened. But I knew better now. I knew to never forget the rules again. The worst was when I broke rule number 4. It was late last night, and I was finishing up in the lounge after a long shift. The flickering of the fire and the hum of the lights were the only sounds in the otherwise quiet lodge. As I was gathering my things, I heard faint music drifting in from outside, a soft, eerie melody that seemed to float through the air. At first I thought it was just the wind playing tricks on me, but the closer I listened, the clearer it became. The sound was coming from cabin 3, and I knew that cabin was unoccupied. Curiosity gnawed at me. I knew I should ignore it. After all, everyone who worked here knew rule number 4. Never enter an unoccupied cabin no matter what. It was the most sacred of rules, one passed down from older co-workers, one that had been around for a while. There were stories, of course, rumors about strange happenings in the cabins that no one could explain. But they were just stories trying to scare the newbies, weren't they? I tried to convince myself to let it go, to leave well enough alone. But the music, it pulled me in. I couldn't resist. So against my better judgment, I grabbed my jacket and headed outside, the cold night air nipping at my skin. As I approached cabin 3, the door was ajar and the music grew louder, almost as if it were beckoning me. I hesitated for a moment, but my feet moved forward, drawn by some unseen force. The door creaked as I pushed it open further. Inside, the air was stale, but not as musty as I expected for a cabin that had been abandoned. The only light came from the dim glow of the moon filtering through the windows, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. At first, I didn't see anything unusual. The room was empty, the furniture covered in dust sheets, the fireplace cold and unused. But then I noticed the record player in the corner, a vintage model that looked out of place among the abandoned furniture. The needle was stuck on a warped vinyl, spinning in slow, uneven circles. The music it produced was haunting, beautiful but utterly wrong. Each note felt dissonant, like it was trying to reach something but couldn't. I stood there rooted to the spot, the melody filling the space around me, twisting the air. It was a sound that seeped into your bones, making your skin crawl, but also pulling you deeper. I didn't know why I was still standing there, but I couldn't tear myself away. Something about the music felt familiar, like I'd heard it before, but from a lifetime ago. Then as I turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind me with a violent thud, startling me so much I almost jumped out of my skin. My heart began to race, my breath quickening as I fumbled with the handle. The door wouldn't budge. Panic surged through me and I yanked harder, but the door remained closed as though something, or someone, was holding it shut from the other side. The music hadn't stopped. If anything, it had grown louder, more insistent, almost mocking. I don't remember exactly how I got out. One moment I was frantically pulling at the door, and the next, I was standing in the dark, cold night again, gasping for breath. My mind was a blur. I didn't even remember the walk back to the lodge, but somehow I found myself at the front door, my hand still trembling as I knocked. Pete was waiting for me when I stepped inside. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His gaze was enough, that look of disappointment, like he already knew what I'd done. Like he could see the mistake I'd made before I even had the chance to say anything. His eyes didn't hold anger, only this deep, quiet understanding of how foolish I'd been. And then, just like that, he turned and walked away without a word. The air in the lodge felt heavy, thicker than it had before. As I stood there, the music from Cabin 3 still echoing in my mind, I realized just how badly I'd broken rule number 4, and how in doing so I might have just sealed my fate. That night I almost broke rule number 5 too. The ski lift is the fastest way to get back to the cabins after a late shift, especially when the snow is thick and the air is biting cold. I'd been considering it all evening as I glanced at the clock on the wall, 9:12 p.m. I was tired, and the idea of a quick ride up seemed almost too tempting to pass up. But then I hesitated. It wasn't the safest option. I knew I should hike instead. So with a sigh, I pulled on my gloves and grabbed my bag, setting out on the trail. The path was quieter than usual, the snow crunching softly beneath my boots. Halfway up, though, something made me stop. I looked up, and that's when I saw it. The ski lift moving, its creaky sound breaking the stillness of the night. No one was supposed to be on it that late. It was far too late for anyone to be up there, especially alone. Yet there was a figure, a pale blur, sitting in one of the chairs. It didn't move like a person. It was unnaturally still, almost as if the figure were searching for something, or someone. The way it shifted and swayed in the chair, its head turning slowly as though scanning the dark, made my heart race. It didn't look human, not fully. There was something off about it, like a shadow more than a person, a distortion in the night. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at it, frozen in place. It was moving slowly but deliberately, as if it knew exactly what it was doing. I could feel my pulse quicken. I'm sure it would have seen me if I'd taken the lift. It would have been impossible to miss me, and I wasn't sure what would have happened if it had. Instead, I kept my eyes on it for as long as I dared, then turned away, my legs trembling as I continued up the trail. The lift kept moving in the corner of my vision, but I didn't look back again. Something told me that if I did, it would be the last time I'd feel safe in that place. Then came rule number 6. It was just past midnight, and I'd just finished a long shift. My body ached, my mind was numb, and all I wanted was to wash up and unwind. The staff bathroom was the only place open at that hour, so I made my way down the dimly lit hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. It was eerily quiet, too quiet for that time of night, and the familiar creaks and groans of the old lodge felt unsettling as I entered the bathroom. I knew better than to look directly into the mirrors, though. Rule number 6 was clear about that. It was one of those things that everyone learned quickly when they started working here. There were whispers, of course, Stories about what happened to those who stared too long at their own reflection, about the things that didn't reflect back. But I'd always assumed they were just old superstitions. After all, mirrors are just mirrors, right? I kept my head down, focused on the sink as I turned on the faucet, the cold water splashing over my hands and face. I closed my eyes for a moment, letting the chill of the water soothe my flushed skin, and then I caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye. At first, I thought it was just my own reflection, moving with me as I adjusted my posture. But then I noticed something was wrong. My reflection wasn't following me. It stayed there, frozen, unnaturally still, while I continued to move around the sink, my hands trembling as I wiped my face. I froze. The reflection didn't blink, didn't shift. It just stood there, staring back at me. But it wasn't me. I could tell right away that something was off. Its eyes weren't the same, too wide, too empty. And then the corners of its mouth twitched, slowly curling into a grin that was far too wide to be natural. It spread like it was stretching something that wasn't meant to be stretched, a grotesque smile that seemed to pull at its face, distorting the skin. The teeth, there were too many of them, jagged and sharp, too sharp for a human mouth. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my stomach. My heart skipped a beat as I realized something else. The reflection wasn't just smiling, it was mocking me. It wasn't moving with me anymore, it was watching me. The grin stretched wider still, impossibly wide, as if it were about to split the reflection's face in half. I could feel my own smile beginning to falter, but I couldn't stop it. The more I tried to force my expression back to normal, the wider its smile grew. Panic surged through me. I stumbled backward, the sound of my boots scraping against the floor far too loud in the silence of the bathroom. I wanted to scream, but my throat was dry, and all I could manage was a strangled gasp. My eyes flicked frantically to the door, and in that moment I realized I was no longer alone in that room. The reflection in the mirror was watching me, its head tilted to one side as though considering its next move. It didn't just smile now. It grinned, like it had all the time in the world. The grin deepened, the teeth seeming to elongate into something monstrous. I could feel my own jaw aching, my face tightening in a futile attempt to resist. But I couldn't stop it. I couldn't look away. And for a moment it felt like I wasn't me anymore. Like the reflection had taken me over completely. The laughter came next. It started as a low chuckle, soft and sinister, and then it grew louder. It was my voice, or at least it sounded like it was my voice, but it was warped, twisted into something wrong. The laughter echoed in the small room, reverberating off the cold tiles, and the reflection's eyes gleamed with something hungry, something far darker than any human could hold. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so violently now that the water splashed across the counter, droplets catching the dim light. The reflection's laughter morphed into something far worse, a low, guttural sound that made my skin crawl, a laugh that didn't belong in a human throat. And then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, everything stopped. The laughter died. The grin remained. But it wasn't moving anymore. My reflection was still, as though it was waiting, watching. I could barely think. I just knew I needed to get out of there. I didn't dare look back as I stumbled toward the door, the air thick and oppressive in my lungs. I pulled it open and nearly fell out into the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I don't know how long I stood there, gasping for breath, trying to shake the image from my mind. But when I finally forced myself to look back, I could still see the bathroom door slightly ajar, the mirror just beyond it waiting. I never went back in, not once, and from that night on I made sure to never break rule number 6 again, not even for a second. That brings me to now. It's 3:22 a.m. and I'm hiding in the basement supply closet because I couldn't make it anywhere else. Something began following me after I didn't seem to notice the skis standing upright quickly enough. Something is outside the door. I can hear it breathing, a wet, rattling sound that makes my stomach churn. It's been scratching at the door for the past 10 minutes. Long, desperate clawing like something is trying to rip its way in. It sounds like it's getting closer, the scraping growing louder with each pass. My pulse is racing and my skin feels like it's crawling. I can barely breathe, trying to stay as silent as possible, but my heart is thumping so loudly that I'm terrified it'll hear it too. I don't know what to do. I can't stay in here forever, but I can't leave either. The door's not strong enough to hold whatever that thing is for long, and I don't know what'll happen if it gets in. I don't know if I can survive whatever's out there. My phone battery is at 12% and I'm too afraid to move too much, even to plug it in. My hands are shaking so badly that I can barely hold it steady enough to type. I'm posting this here on Reddit because I don't know where else to turn. I've seen strange things before, but nothing like this. I can't tell anyone here what's going on. No one would believe me. But maybe, just maybe, someone on here knows what's happening or can help me figure out what to do. Please, if you've heard of anything like this, if you know what this thing is, please let me know. Anything. I need help. I'll keep posting as long as I can, but my battery is draining fast, and I'm afraid that when it's gone, so will be my chance to get this message out. I just hope someone reads this before it's too late. A lot of people say that something is like hell, but they don't really know just how awful it is. It will make you question everything, wish for a second chance, and do anything to get out of it. You have hope to start with. You pray, thinking that it matters once you're down there, but eventually all that gets burned away. The only thing left of you then is the darkness that put you there. Over time, you begin to lose memories. You forget who you were and you lose your humanity. It's ripped away slowly so you can feel it peeling off your soul, what's left of it anyway. The burning is intense, indescribable. The best way it can be described is like a dry heat, like when you eat something spicy but it makes you cough and burns your throat, mouth, and nose, except you feel it all over from the inside out. Everything burns away and then slowly regenerates so it can be burned again. See, what they don't tell you is that your soul has layers. Once one is peeled away by the blaze, another goes, until all that's left is a tiny speck of what it used to be. Then it all comes back at once and the slow burn starts over. There is no pain on earth to describe it. It's a dark place full of evil and despair. The flames don't make any light, so you can't really see much. It's not that simple, though. You'd think the burning would be the worst part. But the most horrible thing isn't what happens to you. It's what you become willing to do to others to save yourself. Then it's an all different kind of hell, where you wrestle with what it means to choose, between allowing yourself to burn or being willing to cause more suffering to escape it. Everyone there is evil in some form or another. They all ended up there for a reason after all. Pedophiles, rapists, murderers, the worst of the worst of the worst. People who were truly awful when they were on Earth shouldn't deserve any mercy. At least that's what you think when you're on this side of the dirt. The things you become willing to do, though, even to them, it will make you have empathy for even them. See, I've been there. I barely even remember what happened to me before I was there. All I remember is it was some sort of wreck, one that I did not survive, at least not at first. You hear stories of near-death experiences, NDEs, all the time, and they usually sound so fleeting. Any time spent elsewhere, though, does not follow our rules of time. You can be there for the equivalent of centuries, and all that passes here is a quick moment. The burning is awful, and I don't know how long I was there. It could have been minutes, or it could have been several hundred years. What I remember is a group of people offering to get me out of it, and that hell had more to it, that there was worse than the burning. They pulled me out of the fire and offered me a choice: either stay in the pit and burn forever, or join them on their mission. When you're made that kind of offer, you'd do anything to get out of the pit, no matter what it means, for you or anyone else. As soon as I was out of the fire, the relief was instant. I felt my soul begin to reform and not burn away this time. I was immensely grateful and willing to do anything if it meant that I got to stay whole. Of course, it's easy to think that at first, but there was a catch. They explained to me that to stay out of the fire, we would have to catch those who somehow escaped it on their own and punish them before sending them back. Otherwise, there was the risk that they could make it to Earth and cause untold suffering on a level that we just can't comprehend. They summoned these motorcycles that were somehow alive, pulsating with bones, melted flesh, and rotten crystals that smelled like smoke and sulfur. They were dressed like a biker gang. It was like they weren't even trying to avoid the stereotype. They had apparently been there for thousands of our years, which down there meant the equivalent to several hundred millennia. I explained that I felt too weak to do anything, even to stand, and that I needed to just rest. But they told me there is no rest in hell. Either you do the work or you burn. There were 4 of them in total, 3 men and 1 woman, at least that's how I perceived them, but I believed them to actually be something far more sinister. One of them produced a small pill and instructed me to take it, that it would make me strong and give me the power I needed to do what had to be done. So I took it. I didn't bother asking them why they saved me, why I was picked, or what it all meant. I didn't care. Not yet. I rode on the back of one of the motorcycles with one of them, and we drove around what I can only describe as an empty, destroyed town, one that looked like it had been ravaged by war, flame, and destruction. The sky was a hopeless white, and everything else was black and gray. The buildings were smoking and the roads were dilapidated. Plus, not to add to the stereotype again, but there were plenty of crossroads, each of which was guarded by a vile demon. If you stopped at one, they would catch you and throw you back in the pit, so it was crucial to keep moving. We eventually came upon our first target. He was a murderer, someone who killed children when he was alive because he thought it was fun. Obviously an evil man who deserved to be down there to suffer for all eternity. One of the men showed me what they do. Torture. He ripped him up from the ground where he was hiding and did awful things to him. Think of the worst thing you can imagine being done to someone, just the very worst thing. This was 1,000 times as bad. There's nothing in our world that can describe the torture being done. The tools they used, the methods, there are no words to describe it. People say that to make a point, but I mean there are literally no words to describe it because there is no earthly equivalent. Sure, there were some things we'd recognize, like carving him up while he was conscious, peeling away the layers of his soul until all that was left was that speck, and then destroying the speck. But after that, well, it's hard to describe. The speck would come back for a moment and they'd capture it, putting it into a small pouch which apparently contained its own pocket of hell, one that was much deeper than the one we were in, and much worse. This other place wasn't just burning, but a whole new level of terror. Demons would ravage the innards of those who were doomed to be there, eating them, and inside of those demons were further hells, where each version got a little worse, so even if they climbed out again, they'd only be moving up to another hell, too weak to try anything else. Then they'd get shoved down again even deeper than they were before. These people seemed to enjoy what they did, laughing about it, hooting and hollering, cheering and feeling genuinely ecstatic about what they were doing. It unnerved me because then how were we any better? But I did not dare say this. I was too afraid, because I didn't want to go back into the pit or worse, go even further down. So we just rode around looking for more terrible souls who committed unspeakable acts of evil during their time. When we came upon the next one, it was my turn to practice what I had learned and observed. I don't even remember what I did, and I don't want to. The next thing I remember is shivering, shaking scared, being shocked at what I was capable of doing. The only other thing I remember before coming to was the begging and the pleading that this woman did, asking for forgiveness, truly repenting for what she had done, calling for God to help her, for me to save her or take her with us, anything to escape what was happening. But it's like I couldn't control myself. I continued despite how I felt. When I was myself again, I felt a slew of guilt and regret that, again, has no comparison in our world. That in itself is its own kind of hell. We must have kept this up for decades there until I finally couldn't handle it anymore and I wanted to stop. Once you've been out of the pit for a while, some semblance of your humanity begins to restore. I don't know why it didn't seem to for them, which is why I don't think they were fully human or human at all. I vocalized how I was feeling, and they became a whole new kind of angry. They seemed to feel betrayed and viscerally offended that I felt awful for what we were doing. Did those awful people deserve to suffer? Yes, of course, but I still felt awful. I still had a conscience somehow, like my humanity wasn't fully gone. I was clinging to my old life somehow, memories beginning to return. The feelings of what have I done were overwhelming. Seeing this, they began to drag me back to the pit, tying me to the back of one of the motorcycles and driving off. That pain was almost as bad as the burning. Once we were back at the pit, I was terrified at first, but you'd be surprised at what you can get used to when you've experienced something far worse. I don't think there's a more fitting occasion than to say that sometimes it's better to stick with the devil you know than to become one yourself. So, I told them to go ahead. The things we were doing were so awful that I actually preferred to burn myself than to cause suffering for others. I felt like I deserved it. It would be awful, and it would never ever stop, but at least I wouldn't be hurting anyone. I just wasn't built for it. They picked me up ready to throw me back in, but something happened. There was a bright white light, and the grace and peace I felt were, well, again, there's nothing in our world to describe it. See, the thing is, if something that evil can exist, then the opposite must be true too. I felt so much love and forgiveness, and suddenly, I was awake in a hospital bed in the ICU. It wasn't a great feeling, but by comparison to where I had just been, it felt downright heavenly. I prayed ceaselessly, asked for a Bible, and began to read and study. I began to turn to God, not out of fear, but out of repentance. I like to think that the choice I made down there is what gave me another chance, and I don't intend to waste it. So heed my warning while you still can. Hell is real, and it is so much worse than we think it is. What I saw was just a very small part of it, and more horrid things lurk down there that I didn't get to witness. I hope I never have to again. The thing that gets me through all the pain, suffering, and aching of this life is the knowledge that if hate that strong can exist, then love of that strength can too, and that faith is the vehicle for love that will save us all. A crowd of people ran in a multicolored band of light, a rainbow at the end of which gold shone in a pot. People running sank into the rainbow up to their ankles, knees, and others to their jaws, and finally fell into the abyss. Mark was an average person. He had average height, average job, average apartment, and average aspirations. And this averageness started to bother him lately, like sleeping on a pea. Maybe that's why he has these strange dreams. Never mind, it's time to get out of bed and turn on the app that will change his gray life. Invest AI. That was the not very creative name of the tool. It was an assistant for investing in the stock market. How did it actually work? Nobody knew because it was closed software. Maybe it was trained on all available historical stock market data. Or maybe not entirely, because there are so-called black swans or unexpected events, such as the invention of synthetic rubber at a time when astronomical costs had been incurred in creating infrastructure for obtaining natural rubber, due to which all previous attempts to bind the stock exchange with mathematics and statistics had come to nothing. At least that's how Robert, who knew about it, explained it to Mark. Supposedly knew. Mark knew nothing at all. His profession was average, as I mentioned above, and the stock exchange was supposed to be a tool to break out of mediocrity. Maybe he would know a little more, but the entrepreneurship lessons at his school were taught by Mrs. Zabska, who confused the class with a therapy office and spent most of her classes grumbling about her old man. Mark was one of the rainbow runners. He ran up to another runner and gently tugged on his shirt. "What's going on here?" he gasped. The other one, "I know that much. We're running to this pot of gold. I haven't seen anyone succeed. Some fell at the very end. We sink while running. If we stop, we slowly start to emerge. People try different techniques, spinning, jumping, running in a zigzag to minimize the effect of sinking. What happens after falling? I don't know, that's all." He woke up again, drenched in sweat. A quick breakfast and coffee, and he sat down at the computer and the stock exchange. The tool indicated a great investment in rare element mines in Modena. This small African country was founded by one of the European colonial powers, then retaken by another. In the 1970s, on the wave of decolonization, the locals gained independence because whites lost interest in maintaining the colonies. A decade later, rare elements were discovered and the country was enriched, which however mainly benefited the rulers. Mark tried different running styles, but he was already knee-deep in the rainbow. He saw on one side more people falling. On the other side, that his running partner, who had explained the rules of the game to him, although he had nodded long enough to be on the surface, had not started running again. "What are you doing?" asked Mark. "Run." "No," replied the other. "I think I understand now. I'm staying here." The strange nightmare was so real that our hero felt sore in the morning. Bad news awaited him at the computer. The minister, who owed his position to commissioning a study of the views of the residents of his constituency on various issues, and asking his parish priest about the same, then taking the average and making it his election program, informed about the withdrawal of our diplomats from Modena due to a coup d'etat. The previous prime minister, with the help of the army, overthrew the pro-Western president, announced the nationalization of the mines, so that not foreign corporations but the people would profit from the wealth of their land. To make matters worse, the AI would not allow the sale of shares in the mine to recover even a scrap of invested money. Mark was already quite close to the finish line. He lost sight of his friend and was already nose-deep in the rainbow. When he was only a few meters away from the pot, he fell, flying between the clouds, until suddenly everything went black. He opened his eyes to see that he was sitting in a cauldron of boiling liquid, two unfortunate people next to him in the same situation, and in the middle of the room appeared a winged creature with hooves and a goat's head. breathing fire from its mouth. Just as suddenly, the creature changed into an old man with a thinning gray mane and a gray crumpled suit and spoke. "Well, enough of the theater, you are intelligent boys. We can do without these tricks to make you guess that I am the Lord of Evil. Evil in the broad sense, so to speak. Because you see, according to your monkey logic, if you punch your neighbor in the ass, evil will happen, and you are the evildoer. But if you stand crookedly on the sidewalk and twist your ankle, evil will happen, but you do not consider yourselves evildoers. Here in this vestibule, which you usually call purgatory, this distinction does not count. I feed on evil. It does not matter whether the perpetrator does it intentionally, accidentally, or from above. No guilt in the earthly sense can be attributed to him." Mark noticed that together with his companions in misery, they were not sitting in steaming cauldrons but on chairs with their hands tied with cable ties. The hero's next wake-up call was not the most pleasant, but this time a pleasant surprise was waiting for him in the computer. The value of the shares of the Modenian mines that Mark had shot up, and the AI bought large subsequent packages when investors terrified by the coup d'etat sold them at junk prices. Mark had just become a rich man. This was possible because a certain People's Front of Modenia marched on the capital, and after several exchanges of fire with the army, restored the overthrown president to power, who immediately assured that the property of Western corporations in the country was not threatened. Upon closer examination, it began to get strange. No one had heard of the People's Front of Modenia before. It was mentioned only by a few blogs of unknown origin, and an article in Wikipedia describing a provincial pro-Western movement, however. Experts in this field expressed the assumption that it was a recent entry that had been backdated to look 4 years older. An investigative journalist put forward the thesis that, in reality, unknown perpetrators had paid a group of international mercenaries who defeated the pro-government forces. However, a moment after sending the article to the editor, the journalist was shot. Mark was very confused. On the one hand, the joy of the almost miraculous earnings. On the other, the strange circumstances surrounding the topic. He glanced again at the Wikipedia article illustrated with a photo of the alleged warriors. They looked like they were generated by artificial intelligence, he thought, created by AI. Then cold sweat broke out on him. "Well, gentlemen, but to emphasize that we are not in Versailles, it is time for some tradition," the old man began, after which a fire with a rod lying in it appeared in front of him. "I have chosen you three here now because of certain, let's say, differences in approach to the surrounding world. For a moment, I considered sticking toothpicks under your fingernails, but let's solve this quickly. The weekend awaits," he said, after which he grabbed the already heated rod with his bare hand. "Well then," he said, and directed the rod towards the first one. He shouted, "Black Lord, I have always been on your side, and I renounce God." Then he shouted when the rod reached his face, "Maybe we can come to an agreement." The second one replied, "I will do whatever you want, just don't burn me with it." The old man lowered his hand with the rod, smiled, then shouted, "You can't give me shit, you monkey," and with a quick movement burned his face. Now he turned his gaze to Mark. "And you? What will you tell me, young man?" "FCK off," he shouted back. "I don't want to have anything to do with you or anything you represent." The smile disappeared from the old man's face. He grabbed Mark by the arm with his other hand. He said, "Don't fidget. You have these dreams. You are here because cancer is developing in your body unnoticed, and that is why we are assessing where you will end up after everything. I will heal you. Well, that's it. Run away to the Valley of Tears. The door is on the left-hand side. Check up in 50 years. And as for the two of you," he looked at the two unfortunates, "gentlemen, come with me." This first began in 1999 in Raleigh, North Carolina, when I was 6 years old. My childhood bedroom was the size of a bad thought. Sarah slept like the dead beneath me, thank God, because every night something else in that room was awake, and I could hear it breathing. Me? Forget it. Sarah could have slept through a bomb going off down the street on that bottom bunk. I'd lie up top. Every creak that old house groaned, every single leaf that scraped against the window pane, jolting me wide awake. Just lying there, eyes glued to the dark, listening to the real sounds of the house, the ones that weren't supposed to be there. One of my earliest memories from that cramped space, it's still there, you know. Burned into my brain, this raw, unsettling feeling. It was the breathing. Not normal kid sleeping breathing, not even close. This was ragged, thick, like something was drowning, trying to force air in. And it wasn't Sarah, definitely wasn't Sarah. It'd start soft, a faint wet wheezing. I tried to tell myself it was the wind, the house settling, anything but what it sounded like. Then it would get louder, closer. You could feel the effort, that desperate struggle for breath. It felt like it was right there, sharing the room right under my bunk. Sometimes the frame would vibrate a little with each choked inhale. Creepy as hell. My kid brain tried to make sense of it. Pipes? Yeah, right, this felt alive, like something was trapped and in pain. I'd try to nudge Sarah awake, whisper her name, shake her gently. Nothing. She'd just mumble and roll over, completely gone. Didn't hear a thing. And me? I was just lying there, frozen, listening to this monstrous breathing filling every inch of that tiny space. Completely alone with it. It wasn't every night, thankfully. Just sometimes. No pattern I could figure out. Years it went on, some nights silence. Sweet, blessed silence. Other nights, that awful breathing would start the second the lights went off and wouldn't stop until just before dawn. I'd lie there, stiff as a board with fear, staring into the blackness, trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. Under the bed? Inside the walls? Or closer? God, that thought still makes my blood run cold. As I got older, I started, keeping a flashlight under my pillow just in case. A few times, or maybe more, I don't know. Honestly, it's all still a blur, when that breathing felt like it was right on top of me. Like something was breathing right down my damn neck, I'd snap that light on. My hand shaking so hard it felt like it would come right off. Trying to see something, anything at all in that room. But never seeing a damn thing. Nothing. Just our clothes crammed in the closet, shadows doing that creepy stretched out thing. But the breathing? Still there, heavy, mocking me. Eventually we moved. Thank Christ, my own room, bigger, quieter. The breathing stopped. I almost forgot about it, figured it was just a kid's overactive imagination fueled by too many scary stories. You try to rationalize it away, right? Until a few weeks ago, visiting my folks. My old room's a guest room now, but the bunk bed was still there, shoved in a corner under a dusty sheet. Helping Dad carry some crap upstairs when I saw it. Not the bunk bed, but the floor underneath. Or rather, what was on the floor underneath. The dust where Sarah's bunk used to be was all violently disrupted, like something had been dragged in and out repeatedly. Faint trails in the dust leading towards the wall like desperate claws had tried to dig in. Dad noticed me staring. "Oh yeah," he said, casual as you like. "We had a bit of a pest problem in that room for a while. Nothing major, just some... We never figured out what, exactly. Exterminator came, laid down some traps, seemed to do the trick. He kept talking about the gutters, but I was stuck staring at that floor, my heart hammering. Pest problem. Traps. Suddenly that raw, suffocating breathing slammed back into my memory, and it hit me, hard. It wasn't coming from the bed, it was coming from under it, from whatever the hell had been living, maybe hiding in that cramped space beneath Sarah. Inches below me, all those nights. And those trails to the wall, where did they go? Inside, was it just living in the walls? Could it still be there, somewhere in that house, silent, unseen, waiting? 30 years they've lived in that house. 30 years. I slept in that room for half my childhood. And all that time, something else might have been there. Sharing the space, breathing in the dark. Its presence a secret, cold weight just under the surface. Now, every time I think about visiting, I get this sick feeling in my gut. A cold dread that just won't quit. I picture that disturbed dust, those faint trails vanishing into the wall, and I can't shake the thought that whatever it was, whatever breathed under Sarah's bed, might still be there, listening for the silence. And I wonder if those traps got everything, because some things find other ways in. They always do. And to whatever was under our bed, never. Let's not meet again at all.